And
Sorry.
How's that, Jeff?
Neil?
What was that?
Yeah. Would you be the best person to confirm with?
Yeah, you can call here and we can
Okay.
confirm that it's on there.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Even just opened up.
I think Thomas, oh wait, he'll be here in 5. Okay. So we can start.
And Jeff is on.
Oh, okay.
He had no sound, but we were muted, so I think we've solved that problem.
It says I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Jeff.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to
All
be
right.
muted for the most part.
Okay, well, we'll start the meeting and then we'll vote you in, I assume. So, welcome everyone to tonight's select board meeting. It's Monday, January 22nd. I'm Sabrina Dunlap and we have Ken Traum and Stephen Whitley, and Thomas Lapoma should be joining us shortly. We have Jeff Donahoe on the phone, and I will move that we allow Jeff to join by phone.
I'll second.
Okay, so now everything has to be a roll call vote. I'm a yes.
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
All right, Jeff, you're in.
Thank you very
Although I
much.
understand you can only stay for an hour or so.
Yeah, maybe 55 minutes. I'm probably going to jump at 6:25.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so first up we have points of pride.
Sure. I just want to especially thank all the department heads. I'll talk a little bit more, but we had a labor audit, which comes I think they were last here 6 years ago. And everybody, the buildings really were good, which is great. And they were great. And we met with them, and so everything was good.
Excellent.
That's great.
Okay.
It-
Ken?
Not really about town employees, but at the school, they had the play Footloose,
Oh, yeah.
and it was terrific. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yes, we saw it. It was very fun.
It's amazing how many popular songs came out of that movie.
I know it's true. I had
It's popular
forgotten.
when I was in high school.
Yeah, we the next day we went and pulled up the movie.
Yeah,
And, we preferred the show to the movie.
nice. Okay.
That guy at the front door, I don't really like him much, but he gets the tickets.
Well, that's true. That was Jeff, for those who didn't know.
Okay, so next under administrative, we have approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda of January 22nd, 2024.
I'll second.
Okay, it's a roll call vote. I'm a yes. Ken?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes,
Okay, and approval of the public meeting minutes from January 8th, 2024.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, I'm a yes. Ken?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Jeff?
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay. All right, so first, under our public appointments, we have the Webster Select Board joining us. And I assume they're online?
They're
Or the-
supposed to be here.
Oh, okay. All right.
However, I seem to be here by myself.
Okay, well then, we can't start without them.
Allenby? I don't recognize that.
No, I don't know that name. No.
If anyone has joined us for the skate park discussion, we unfortunately have to push that to our next meeting because we do not have, just for anyone who's online or who's here and didn't hear. So our next meeting is February 12th, I believe.
That's the second Monday in February. Yeah.
Okay. And we will hopefully, it was not on the agenda for tonight. But hopefully it will be on the agenda then. Okay, and we don't have our 6:30 to start that. So I guess we'll just wait for the Webster people.
Talk about the primary.
That's true.
But
I guess we can do
primaries
some old
tomorrow.
business. Okay, so yes, primaries tomorrow. And its polls are 7 to 7 at the high school. And so town hall will be closed, right? Or at least the clerk's
The
office?
town clerk's
Clerk's
office is
office.
closed. The rest of us are here.
Okay. Anything else for the primary?
Everything's set up and ready to go.
All right. Excellent. Jeff, are you going to be there tomorrow?
Yeah, I can work the poll because I decided to not run for president this time. So
Okay, that's okay. That sounds good.
I told Sarah that I'd be there 6:45.
Okay. All right. Do we want to do the financial update? or-
Sure, you have an updated version and you have an additional updated revenue, which had some more. It still isn't quite final, but is there just to give you an update? Nothing's really changed, but we're coming in at the end of the year. The one thing I will note is there's still a land use change tax transfer to be made, which is another
Right.
will lower the amount by 36,865. So
How much?
36,865. So, but by your next meeting, we should have everything finalized.
Okay, maybe Houston Barn update next.
I don't know if you've been by the Houston barn, but the roof on one side is on. Within the next couple of weeks, the other side should be finished, which will finish the project. They've done a really nice job on the cupola as they put the roof on. If it's warm enough, they're actually going to stain. There's a wood section on the cupola. They put the metal top of the cupola and the metal roof, and they're going to stain that while they're up there if it's warm enough. So if you haven't been there, we'll have pictures and we should be done hopefully in the next 2 weeks, weather permitting.
Excellent. Okay. So I don't know if you, so the Webster Select Board is coming in person, which I didn't realize, so they're not here yet.
Yep.
Do you want to talk some transfer station issues first before we? So
Always.
if Ken and Stephen and Jeff are okay with that,
Sure.
Thomas, which we alluded to at our last meeting, that Thomas took the time to put together some thoughts on the transfer station. And so figured, I mean, this conversation sort of in parallel to what our discussion will be with Webster tonight. This is really sort of our discussion about transfer station and like things that affect Hopkinton. We'll be having more specific conversations with the Webster Select Board.
When are they coming?
I don't know, soon.
10 minutes ago.
They were supposed to be here 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
I'll have to speak to them. So yeah.
They do know it's tonight, right?
Traffic was terrible getting here. Yeah.
Okay, so, obviously, we've been having some big picture discussions and discussions about green bags. And tonight we'll be talking about fees. We've had some helpful input from folks in town about thoughts on sort of the future of the transfer station and hello. So that's one,
That's
right?
one, yeah.
Okay. We're waiting for the rest of your.
Yeah.
You can hang out wherever until we, or sit here. We're just chatting until the rest of your board gets here. We're talking some transfer station issues. So anyway, Thomas, I don't know if you want to jump in on your thoughts
Sure.
on like what you dug into or.
Yeah, I mean, this all more or less started when we started to talk about the transfer station fees update. And the only number that we're talking about changing on the transfer station fees was just the tipping fees. The tipping fees increasing from whatever they are now to $150 a ton. And so my comment then was more of, we should probably take a look at all the fees as opposed to just this one. And then that kind of spiraled into looking at a bunch of other towns, how they handle it, diving into a bit of the total cost analysis of the waste cost per ton, not just of what our tipping fee is, but also what the breakdown is for all of the other aspects of the transfer station. And that spiraled into a little bit of looking at green bags, which is always fun to talk about, especially I think Jeff's last comment about it was, we said last year we would look at changing the green bag price. So this spiraled into a little bit of looking at what the green bag price was. I don't think any of this is a proposal by any means, but more of just things to talk about. Although I think
Hi.
now do we
All right, we have Webster here, I believe. We have space. You guys can come, join us.
I can even move. How's that?
Great. So, I mean, I'm happy to walk through this now, or we can wait.
Does it sort of dovetail with our,
I think
Discussion with
there are some
Webster?
interesting numbers in here that I think are that are just transfer station general. And then obviously, if we're gonna talk about the fees
Yeah.
schedule, I think there's some interesting numbers in there that'll be
Mm.
helpful for the discussion. The green bag stuff, I think is,
we can do after?
yeah,
our discussion
totally.
with Webster?
Or
Okay.
we can come back to it too. So I don't know if you wanna walk through the presentation, I'm happy to walk through that.
Would
I-
that,
What?
would that be okay with Webster folks if we just, Thomas has done some digging on the transfer station numbers and I don't know if that's okay with you?
It's a fun place to start. Sure, let's go for it, Neil.
Yeah.
The one thing I do want to note is, none of it, I'm not proposing we necessarily do any of this.
That's fair.
It's more of a, what would the world look like and what does it look like now? Kind of thing. I don't know if it's in.
That's right, that's it. 5C.
It's the last frontier, isn't it?
Oh,
No.
I don't think
It's
it's in
in
this,
ours.
it's not in this folder, I don't think, actually.
Thought I had it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it in this folder. when I
Is
looked
it
this
F?
morning.
Where's F? Oh.
F.
hmm.
All right.
The final frontier?
But it should, if it's in your laptop, it should.
I
be there.
know, it's weird.
It's on our folder is 5F.
Don't forget that conversation.
Don't worry about that.
Here. want to see a quick look?
Oh, yeah. This is great. This is good.
There it is.
My favorite
yeah,
is this
there it
graph
is.
right
Number
here.
My chair keeps rolling this way. Be a little slant in the floor. I'm coming at you, kid.
So again, this was really trying to look at, when we look at the transfer station fees and what they are, there's a lot of stuff about our transfer station that doesn't match other transfer stations or other towns. And the question is why? And a lot of this came from the NRA report. One of their big things was we have way more solid waste coming through our transfer station than other ones. The question is why? And that there wasn't a good answer in the NRA report. So that's kind of where I started here. But yeah, so we can just go through this. So oh, no, yep, you have to scroll down. Yeah, it's a scrolling.
It's a
scenario,
PDF,
yes.
sorry.
Sorry, Neil. I can resend you so yeah, so our transfer station scenario is extremely complex compared to most other towns. So like a lot of our neighboring towns, especially to the west, it's kind of like they run a transfer station. The only people that come are people who are taking their own residential waste there. And that's kind of it. A lot of people don't accept commercial waste or don't accept residential hauler waste or a lot of other stuff. So a lot of it's really simple. Ours is really complicated. We have, so this is the lower tier is where all of our trash originates, and then the top tier is where it goes, and then the middle tier is how it gets there. So we have people who drop at the transfer station, and we also have curbside pickup. Sometimes that goes into green bags, sometimes that doesn't go into green bags. And then we also have Webster dropping at the transfer station, and we also have Webster doing curbside pickup. So we have 6 different pathways where people dispose of their trash. Some of that goes into green bags, some of it doesn't. And then some of that comes to our transfer station and some of it doesn't. And because of the 2 different towns, because of the at least 3 different haulers, and because our green bag aren't currently enforced, it's virtually impossible to figure out a breakdown between all of these different things. Based on numbers of interviewing haulers and numbers that came from the 2015 select committee, we know that roughly about 50% of the trash in Hopkinton at least goes through haulers. But that's really the only number that we know of. Because of that, and because we know of our green bag revenue, we know that roughly about a quarter of the people using the transfer station are using green bags. And now it's actually probably less than that. So those are really the only 2 rough estimates we can get. The rest of this is just a giant unknown. So if you go down to the next slide, it goes a little bit more about what we should expect. A big takeaway from the NRA report was that we generate way more trash than other towns' transfer stations. Well, more specifically, more waste goes through our transfer station than other towns. That's not to say we generate more. One of their big takeaways was that we must be having out of town waste come to our transfer station. But from talking with the transfer station attendants, they don't suspect that's actually the issue. So then the question is, how much should we be expecting to go through our transfer station? Again, we can't really compare our transfer station to other transfer stations because we have a much more complicated waste flow than what you'd expect in another place. So right now we have about 3,200 tons of municipal solid waste going through the hopper. The question is, how much should we expect? Based on EPA estimates, the average person generates about 4.9 pounds per person per day. This translates to 5,800 to 6,800 tons per year. So we should expect, if all of the waste generated between the two towns was all of the residential waste generated between the two towns on average, we should be seeing about 58 to 6,800 tons per year going through our transfer station. That number actually makes a little bit of sense if we see that 50% of our waste is going through haulers and a good portion of the haulers aren't going to the transfer station. Then that 3,200 tons makes a little bit more sense in context. So I don't necessarily think it's totally correct that we have a lot of out of town waste coming in, but I also because we're not really doing any enforcement or policing or checkup on it, we don't really know. So there could be a lot of outside waste coming in. And then the question is like, so if that's what we expect, why is this different than other towns? Other towns, we have no idea what their breakdown of hauling to drop rates are. If you're a slightly bigger town than us, it looks like you tend to do curbside pickup, and that curbside pickup doesn't go through the transfer station. If you're a smaller town than us, you don't generate as much waste. And we have no idea between all these different breakdowns where all the curbside pickup is going.
I was gonna ask you, where's it going?
We don't know. We have no idea. We know that in our town, we do have one hauler empty trash. They're here tonight. So if
Yeah.
we have any questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer.
So I got a bunch of information from Bonnie Christie with the recycling reports. And one of the things that I did was put it in and do some calculations in a spreadsheet. One of the things that I came out with was that for MSW per population, it's approximately currently at one of its highest rates, but it's 811 pounds per person per year, which is well below the 4.9 per person per day.
Where'd that number come from?
Yeah.
So
That's our MSW divided by our population of the two towns.
So if you take what's going through the hopper and then you take our population, you will get a much lower number
Mhm.
because a significant portion of our waste is not going through the hopper. So if you look at what we'd expect based on what the population is actually generating, we should expect more. So that 4.9 is not what's going through our hopper.
Right.
That 4.9 is what, as a town, we are likely generating. What's going through the hopper is significantly less, at least half, or
Yeah.
which gets closer to the number that you're talking
The
about.
figure is around 2 or slightly under 2, depending on which way you look at total waste.
Yeah, so that makes sense, because you would take that 3,200 tons and you divide it by the population. So that number makes sense.
Thomas, how do commercial industrial waste fit into this? And calculations?
They don't. Right now, they're not in here yet. So like construction and demo are not in this.
Or just regular waste?
So this is all regular waste. This is like if a normal house, this is household waste. This does not include construction or debris
Right.
or commercial waste.
Just wondering if that even further distorts the number because they're not part of the divisor for population.
So that number doesn't show up in the 3,200 tons. That's a different number. So a commercial and demo doesn't go through the hopper.
You're saying, keep saying demo. I don't mean demo. So I mean just manufacturing solid waste.
So that's a good, yeah, that could, if that was going through the hopper, it is in that 3,200, then it would further distort the number. That's true. Yeah. So, yeah, so I think I'd talk more about that in the next. So one of the questions, so this gets more to like, what should the rates be and what is the real cost? And this kind of goes more into what we should be setting the rates as versus what the green bag price should be. And this is where the kind of split between green bags and non-green bags come. So we have our tipping fee, we have how much is going into it, and then we have our budget. So right now our transportation budget is $781,000. Our revenue, the only revenue that you can really put in here is the $40,000 from recycling. You can't, because we're trying to set the rates, you can't use revenue from all the other stuff in this, because that's the number we're trying to set. So the revenue is what we get from operating it. So it's like the recycling stuff that we get from running the station. So our total expense to transfer the waste, that's $453,000. That breaks into $321,000 for municipal solid waste and $132,000 from demo. So that means all of the stuff that all of the money that we're spending to like run the place, tractors, staff, CapEx, all these things, that total amount of money is $288,000, at least from the current budget. It gets the numbers for municipal solid waste are better broken out in terms of per ton. The per ton isn't as broken out in terms of construction and scrap and all of those things, but I did it based off of percent of the cost, not the percent of the weight. So it breaks out to roughly 60% of the cost of running the station goes to municipal solid waste, 30% of the station goes to demo related expenses. The cost of recycling goes inside of that municipal solid waste because that's where the recycling is being generated from. So if you break that out into what we should be charging per ton for tipping stuff, we have our municipal solid waste tipping. So assuming there's no out of town waste coming in there, the expense to manage all of that waste coming in is $205,000. Right now we're doing about 3,200 tons. That comes to $64 per ton that we're spending for salaries and operational expenses, and $93 per ton to actually transfer the waste out. So the total amount of money that that it costs us per ton of waste, of municipal solid waste, is $157 per ton. If you go to the construction and demo side, again, targeting that 30% breakdown of operational cost, that comes to whatever the transfer cost to actually remove the waste is, plus $80,000. And that's the number. Once we know what the actual number, like tonnages of that municipal, or what the tonnage of that demo is, then you could actually put a per ton cost. The estimate that I came out to puts it pretty close to the municipal solid waste. And if you look at other transfer station tipping fees, they normally actually kind of just peg them at the same number. So it's about right. But if we want to really peg it, we need to know the total tonnage of the demo. Yeah, to be clear, I am not recommending we set it at 157 a ton. But if we wanted to incorporate the entire cost per ton of running the station and transferring the load out, that is a rough breakdown of what that number is.
And you're not recognizing any capital costs?
You mean like long-term capital expenditures?
Yes.
No, only stuff that's in the budget. Yeah.
In the operating.
In the operating
not the
budget, right?
capital budget.
Right.
Okay.
Do you want to wait to finish or?
Is there a way, I can't read all this stuff on the screen, it's hard to follow, can you email that out?
Sure. It also was in last week's.
I-
But if you go to those supporting documents, but yes. We didn't realize this was going to be on tonight, which is why I wasn't in. Yeah.
So last week's.
It is there if you want it quickly. It's in last week's. I don't know if that will do that. Right. It's not in this week's because it wasn't scheduled.
Do you have last week open?
I can definitely send it to you after.
I can't send it right now. No.
So if you go to the next slide now, so I'm not proposing anything. This is more just a dive into the numbers and kind of a little bit more. Next, I'm putting a little bit more thought into what the green bag pricing should be. Because if you take that number and then say, we're not just trying to cover the tipping cost, we're trying to cover the cost of the transfer station. So when you look at other, like, that's kind of the, when you move to pay by bag programs, that's generally one of the purposes, is that you're covering the cost of the waste that you produce. And so for analysis, I only looked at large bags. Large bags across different pay by bag towns typically are the exact same size. The small bags can vary by a lot. So only using large bags for comparison. Right now we have $1.25 per 33 gallon bag. That should roughly weigh about 25 pounds. So that's 1.25 cents per ton. Sorry, that's not right. The bag weighs 0.0125 tons. So that roughly comes to, the green bag revenue is roughly $100 per ton. That right now covers the transfer fee, but it doesn't cover any of the operational cost of the transfer station. So if we use that full cost and said the purpose of the green bag is to cover all of the cost of the waste, then we should be using $157 per ton, which would equate to 7.8 cents per pound, which would be about $2.56 per large bag. That includes the estimated cost of the bag. I don't have the exact cost of the bag, so I estimated in there based on our current numbers, but that's about roughly what it'd be. And that would equate to about 104% increase in the bag prices. If you look at other towns, they vary widely between $1.50 a bag to $4 a bag. So it seems like a drastic increase, but it's not out of bounds of what other towns are looking at.
What other towns did you compare us to? What'd you say?
I'm extremely bad at remembering names. But I have it in here. It's all the other green bag towns,
Oh, okay.
or pay by bag towns
Is that like across all of New Hampshire or?
of similar size. No, yeah, I think basically across New Hampshire, because I know Concord's in there. Like, isn't Concord 350 something? Now my laptop's on. As soon as this comes up, I'll pull up.
I was just kind of, as we're just like comparing anything.
Yeah, there's I think this was from the NRA report. I think they had like 5 or 6 different pay by bag towns in there.
It's all right.
No, it's like, it should, well, as soon as it pulls up, I'll grab it.
And how many years ago was the $1.25 set?
That's the original price. It's never been changed.
So that was set in 2010.
Cool. So if you keep going, it gets even better.
The fun part.
What?
The fun part.
The fun part. So at least to me, one of the big problems with the green bag program is that it only affects a portion of the town, not the entire town. And so effectively what we're saying is that a portion of the town has to pay for all of their waste at a set price, and they have to pay for how much they're using. But then whoever's using a hauler doesn't have to do that anymore. So if you keep going, I break down what it might look like if we had curbside pickup of pay by bags. It's worth noting that the 2015 select committee that was looking at the green bag program, their single biggest recommendation was moving to a curbside pickup program. And it didn't really go anywhere because, well, from the people I talked to, effectively, the quotes they got back from curbside pickup was way too high. And what's interesting though, is that if we fully paid for the entire program of curbside pickup through the pay by bags, then the cost of those bags is still within realm of not only what people are paying currently for curbside pickup, but it's also within realm of other green bag prices. So looking at other haulers in town, currently empty trash cart charges $115 per quarter, all clear charges $160 per quarter. I don't know what H2O charges, but based on the average household is producing about 75 pounds per week. That comes to roughly about $141 per ton to somewhere between $141 per ton to $231 per ton that the haulers are generating from revenue per household, per ton per household. So if we were trying to basically say the haulers are going to make just the same amount of money to do the same service, so we want to meet that revenue for the haulers, so that has to be incorporated into the green bag price. We also need to incorporate $157 per ton, which is our transfer station cost, all in, not just the tipping, but also all the operational expense. That comes to a total cost that someone has to pay for curbside pickup. at $2.98 per ton total cost. That would come to roughly $4.32 per bag. Which sounds like a lot. But if you go to the next slide, there's a breakdown of what that would look like for the average
And
household.
just to double check, that's you suggesting that the bag is paying for for example, empty trash.
Yeah.
As opposed to the individual paying for empty trash.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, so this would, not saying a specific haul or anything, but that's saying, whoever is doing the hauling is not losing money in the scenario or not making more money. The hauler is coming out even, they're doing the same service for the same cost.
And the
generating the same
assumption
revenue.
there is that the town is paying for it instead of the individual?
The individual is paying through it through the green bags.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so instead of having that $2.50 per green bag, you'd have $4 and whatever cents per green bag. That difference between those prices is going to the hauler.
And like 6 or something.
Oh, yeah. We're pretty close to the end, hoping.
Yeah, they're gonna rate.
So what these numbers seem high, but what I'm most curious about is what does this look like to the actual homes?
You probably want to hit the plus again.
And what's really interesting about this is in these scenarios, the bag price is increasing. However, the town's budget is decreasing and the town's budget is coming from taxes. So the individual home's tax is decreasing. So right now, if you take the budget and you look at the average household is spending $185 just for the transfer station. Even if you didn't use the transfer station, every single household is spending about $185 just because that's what's in the budget. If you fully take over the entire cost of the transfer station into the green bags, that $185 goes away because it's no longer in the budget. It's no longer raised by taxes. And instead, it's being raised by how much waste you produce, which is being paid for through the green bags. So for each different scenario, whether or not you are not using pay-by bags, whether or not you are using green bags and taking them to and then whether or not you're using empty trash currently or using all clear currently. So this is how much yearly you'd be spending and the percent increase or decrease. So the largest increase is for people who aren't using pay-by bags, because right now they're being subsidized by all of the taxpayers and they're not spending anything for green bags. And then for people who are using green bags or for using empty trash, they'd see about a 5% increase. And for people who are using all clear currently, would see about an 18% reduction.
So, Thomas, if theoretically Hopkinton went to this.
Yeah.
And Webster didn't,
Yes.
and at the much higher cost of green bag, it would incent a lot of people in Hopkinton to recycle a lot more, put a lot less in the waste stream. Wouldn't Webster be making a killing?
I don't know about a killing. I mean, our revenues from recycling are like $40,000 for our profits.
But wouldn't they be still paying, say, 25% of the, only 25% of the total cost of the $100 per ton?
Well, so they would be, Webster right now spends a quarter, they have to share a quarter of all of it.
Of all of it, and if our 75% goes down significantly, they benefit from that.
Because of the reduced waste.
We're back to the same problem of one town doing it one way and the other town doing it another.
The other thing that I would point out here is that you're including multiple things, not just whether it's green bags and trash or not. Now you're covering the costs of curbside pickup, which a lot of people don't want to spend the extra towards. And of course, a lot of people do, but that difference should be a choice for an individual household to make, not something that's wrapped up in a green bag.
So that's why I actually put two different pricings here. One would be green bags, one would be a different color. So you could have two different, I mean, this is as a town, this is Hopkinton's problem, is that half the town uses curbside and half the town doesn't. And so if we want to have a unified system, everyone has to be in the same program. Otherwise, somebody's subsidizing somebody else. I'm not strongly proposing we do this. What I'm saying is if we were trying to use the greenback or the pay by bag program to cover the entire cost of the system, this is roughly how it translates into costs. I think that there's still a huge number of issues that would pop up.
Yeah, Thomas, we still have to deal with how to enforce it, however it gets structured as well.
Yeah, Jeff, I agree. I think, but you have to talk about enforcement in a separate context. You have to assume that we are doing enforcement. Enforcement has to be part of the,
Which increases costs.
right. Enforcement, you have to assume we are correctly enforcing the policies. In terms of how it could work, again, this is starting to seem more like a proposal. I'm honestly, after writing out all of this, I'm not sure this is a great idea. But if we did have a second color bag, it's something that we could implement pretty easily because we wouldn't need to really change anything about the system other than paying haulers whenever they pick it up. Right now, we don't charge haulers when they drop off green bags, and instead we could just start paying them, and it would effectively implement the program. But again, that's more complicated than it sounds. Are there more slides?
There's tax impact
Oh, yeah.
and notes
Just
on.
because tax impact is always the big key factor. It would reduce the tax rate by 50 cents per thousand. Again, that gets taken up by green bag costs, but in terms of tax rate, it would reduce it by 50 cents per thousand. Oh, and then this is, I think, actually much more interesting for tonight's discussion, which is notes on the fee table. Going through other towns' fee schedules, construction and demo are typically much higher than we have them. They also tend to collapse the fees into kind of, we have a pretty good separation, so I don't know if we want to keep them separated because it looks like we're doing a good job separating between like shingles and pre-sorted wood and that sort of thing. Most other towns just kind of set them all as the same prices, municipal solid waste, so somewhere between like 160 and 190. So ours should definitely be higher than they are now. Also, we have a pretty complicated residential and commercial appliances section, and we charge per appliance. Most other towns collapse them and just do by pound. A big thing about that is like the purpose isn't necessarily to cover the entire cost. It's kind of like a token cost so that you're not getting people throwing their mattresses out in the woods. So it doesn't need to be the accurate cost. It needs to just be something to help. And we could make it simpler by just decreasing to somewhere between 20 and 30 cents per pound, which matches other towns. We also don't charge for mattresses and propane tanks, which I know NRA is suggesting we do, and we probably should. And then we haven't increased any other fees for inflation in a very long time. So like we have an emergency fee if someone wants to go use it, that should definitely get upped. Tires and refrigerator. I think I meant refrigerators there, but
We didn't mean matrices.
It's all right, we got it.
We don't-
Mattresses.
I don't believe we
Okay.
take refrigerants.
let's spell check. So these are, a lot of these things are mostly like they just haven't been changed in a long time, and we could probably simplify it by collapsing some of the categories. But this is probably more what's helpful to talk through.
Mhm.
And
I think that's it. Well, thanks, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously like our issues are a little more complex. So if we can jump into our discussion with you guys, which is limited to, lucky for you.
See ya.
Limited. We have the refuse disposal agreement, the ordinance, and then the fees that we need to work on together. So let's see. First is the warrant article, right? Is that?
Yes. That's just the plan.
agreement, right?
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm. Right, so I don't think there's anything to debate in the warrant article.
Yeah, I think just to cover the one change that might have been since the last time people have seen the refuse disposal agreement. There was the one change that was made was at the end of number 2, both towns will have the opportunity to interview and submit input for candidates in key positions such as the operator. Was taken care of by our 2 administrators for us.
Okay, great.
What's that new language? I'm sorry.
It's actually not in the draft warrant article.
Yeah.
It's
but-
in, so the,
Adopted 1975 article.
yeah, the track changes version of the Word document is the end of that number 2 says both towns will have the opportunity to interview and submit input for candidates in key positions such as the operator. And that was to account for the fact that while Webster has the 25% responsibility, without something like that, we really didn't have any say for who and how things might be operating.
You mind reading it just one more time?
Sure. You want the whole number or just the added language?
Just the added language.
So at the end of number 2 is both towns will have the opportunity to interview and submit input for candidates in key positions such as the operator.
Sounds
Mm-hmm. But under that, would the final decision still be up to Hopkinton?
Well, they're an employee of the town of Hopkinton. So I would think yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds.
It's the one of the positions or like the primary position of the transfer station. It's used as an example so that basically anybody that's in charge of something over there, we would have the opportunity to interview them if we wish to.
And so is that in the final agreement?
It was in the final agreement that we were
Okay.
sent.
It was in the final draft that went out,
Okay,
the track changes draft. I think from a bunch of meetings ago.
okay, so we need to update that on the warrant article.
Were there any other changes to the draft warrant article?
Only one I noticed,
Yeah.
but that was the only one that was a change in the track changes document, so.
Okay.
Okay, so if we are on the same page on that one, we can move on to the ordinance.
So
Do we need to vote or anything?
yeah, do we want a motion to approve and have both boards approve it at this point?
Well, it turns into the warrant article, so
Consensus enough as a matter of process?
I think, and then both boards will vote their own warrant.
Right.
With the same language. And it only works if the language is the same.
Not at this point, because we're just going through these, we'll have public comment. We can make comments on transfer station and those, anything else you want to talk about, but this is kind of a done deal at this point. I should say on the warrant article discussion. This is for the boards to agree on the ordinance, and then we still have to have a public hearing on the ordinance? Yeah,
Right.
okay.
But you can't really have the public hearing
Until
until
we-
after the pending town meeting approval, because this updates the ordinance to match the new agreement.
Right. But as a matter of process, we both have to have public hearings on changes to the ordinance. Yeah, okay.
And I will say that, I do see one or two typo things in here, like sect ion instead of section 2.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it looked pretty much what we would expect based on conversation. And we will have opportunity to do fine detail on it later if there was something else that came up. But because it would have to be by public hearing after town meeting. But I guess I'll just do the really super short summary and add anything else that you feel is important. Basically, it removed things that are no longer used, such as septage and other similar disposals at the facility, and adjusted things to account for the boards instead of the joint committee, which would be the way that it would be after the agreement is taken care of by town meeting votes. And a couple minor definitions. That's really the majority of what the changes in here are at this point. And is there anything else that you want to call out for changes in this document? Oh, and it does separate out that the fee schedule will be adopted by the boards and posted on the website, which I assume we'll be talking about next.
Mm-hmm, that's correct. Anyone else have any comments on the draft ordinance?
I think it was well summarized.
Thank you. Okay, so do we want to move on to the fee issue?
So. I think especially as you get down into the appliance section, there's a lot that we can do to update and collapse.
Mhm.
Based on everything I've been reading through other different towns, I think that the construction debris also should be pretty substantially changed. Without doing more of an overhaul to the green bag program, I'm not personally in favor of increasing the tipping fee. Mostly because it only impacts really a single user, so I'm not really in favor of that much without doing more of a structural change to how this transportation is taking residential waste. But I think there's probably a lot that can be updated in here.
Did you see the suggestions from
Yes.
Andrea Folsom?
Yeah.
Do you have just a response to any of those, Thomas?
Yeah, they're in here too. I can just go by them and go through them. So the first one is increasing the tipping fee. That one was going to $150 a ton. That $150 per ton was kind of a footnote to the NRA report. It wasn't really broken out in any meaningful way. It was kind of like it should be increased probably to at least $150. If you look at other places, it is even higher than that. So like Concord is like 180. But Concord's also one of the only places that takes it. But most other transfer stations don't even take it. And it's kind of like, if you want to have commercial residential, go somewhere else. And so that's why I'm not super in favor of increasing this one, because right now there's basically only one person who fits into that bucket. And it doesn't feel good to change that, just for that reason. Like if we want to be changing the structure of what the transfer station does, that's kind of a larger discussion, but just changing that, it feels weird to me.
Let me just point out that we assumed in developing our budget for 2024 that it was going to increase to 150. And if it did not, we're adding another % increase to the tax rate.
So what is since you have the estimated actual cost of doing that business per ton at 157, why would that not be matching so that it wouldn't be the taxpayers offsetting any commercial operation?
So my main argument for that is right now, everyone else who uses the transfer station is not paying $150 per ton. So anyone who brings in their trash right now, they're just dumping it. And that's it. They're paying $185 per, they're paying $185 per year. And that's what they're doing. So this is saying anyone who's using haulers, but not just haulers, anyone who's using haulers that use the transfer station is now going to pay an increased price to subsidize everybody else that isn't using haulers that use the transfer station. And so like if everybody was using the green bag program and the green bag program was correctly priced at $157 per ton, then I would say the tipping fee should be $157 per ton, but it's not right now. So because of that, everyone else who's doing it, they're basically just paying whatever their taxes are, and that's it. And so it feels weird. It's basically only charging people who are using haulers that are only using our transfer station. We're saying those people have to pay more, but no one else has to pay more.
So let me pose the devil's advocate question here. Since you just mentioned that it is a lot higher in Concord, and maybe it's not one of our companies, but it's another commercial entity that picks stuff up in Concord and decides to bring it to us. They're now not paying the amount that is needed in order to offset their tonnage.
That can't happen.
That can't happen.
You can't pick up in Concord and bring to us. Our ordinance says
So we
you cannot
don't
do that.
actually accept commercial from out of town.
We
in
only
theory.
accept commercial and residential waste generated in the town.
Okay.
Well, specifically, that's what our ordinance says. Whether that's enforced is a different question, and we need to enforce it. We need to enforce it. But our ordinance says that cannot happen.
I don't know what others would say, but as someone that likes to see things as often and as evenly handled as possible, I would like to see the fee at what the expected cost is actually supposed to be, which would be the 157, based on your research.
I'm also just thinking about, like, I don't know the details of the history, but like why Hopkinton seems to be an outlier in terms of accepting commercial trash. Like, weren't you saying that most towns with transfer stations don't take commercial?
Yeah, most other ones that I see don't take commercial or residential. Is that?
Wait, what do you mean, or residential?
Well, like you take residential, but they don't take like haulers. Like
Right,
haulers
right, right. Yeah,
can't
that's
bring
what
them up.
that's what I mean.
It's all residential, but commercial haulers.
Yeah.
There is a distinction, I think.
The one thing that I did see occur a couple times throughout some of the different ordinances where they don't accept any commercial. However, they do have one-off contracts. Like they basically have permits for haulers that are operating in town. If we were to see an increase above the flat rate, I would rather go that direction because it's basically like, it's not like this is an open, it's not like a bunch of people are doing this right now. So like, if we were to make a change, I'd rather work with the people who it affects rather than like just set it. And my biggest thing with setting it to $157 per ton is no one else is paying that. Any other hauler that's not bringing it to our transfer station doesn't have to pay that. And so it's kind of like we're choosing a very small subset of people that we're gonna make pay more money, and everyone else doesn't have to do it.
Well, if they can get it less expensive elsewhere, why wouldn't they? And then that reduces our costs.
Why wouldn't, well, first of all, our costs. If you're talking about the town's cost, that's one thing. If you're talking about the cost of the residents, that's something else. Because eventually it's all the residents' costs no matter what, like the residents are paying for all of it. So what we're saying is this section of residents who wants to use this service has to pay more. And so like, yeah, it reduces the budget and it reduces the town's cost, but it's not changing anything about the residents. It's just shifting the fees from one section of residents to the other. And that's also kind of my problem with the green bags program in general, is the green bag program right now, because not everyone is using it. It's saying these people are going to pay more money than these people in town because these people are using green bags and these people aren't.
I mean, we could just say no commercial trash and no more green bags. Simplify life.
True.
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling with like, the reality is if we only have one local hauler and this impacts them, like that doesn't feel great. But on the other hand, from like a rational perspective, it seems odd to not charge what like actually covers the cost. And
The other thing to note here is that there's only one commercial hauler that fits into this category that would be paying this $150 per ton. They're also the only commercial hauler that's picking up green bags. So like,
But the green bags wouldn't incur the charge.
correct. But the problem is there's other haulers that are available. So if the people don't want to use green bags and they don't want to pay a higher price, they can use some other service. Which again is fine for whoever, but it's just like it. We're just all we're doing there is hurting businesses that operate inside the town.
are there not any commercial haulers in Webster that come to the transfer station?
Empty trash.
Empty.
Oh, empty, yes, go there. Okay.
I don't know where they're actually based, but they definitely do plenty of business in Webster.
Empty trash.
Empty trash is
Right
based, they're based in
right
Hopkinton.
I know.
Mhm. So what are you proposing then, if not 150?
What I would propose is that whatever that rate's gonna be, it should be set in tandem with whatever we're gonna do with group backs. And so I think something needs to change with that number. I don't know if right now is the time to change that number. The cost of waste should be split fairly between everybody in town. And if we just change that number without changing any other numbers, we're choosing one section to put a burden on. So I don't. We can change this throughout time. I don't know if, I think there's a lot of other things in here that are easier to change. I think that this one needs more thought.
What is the tipping fee currently set to? Besides low?
93?
It is 90, our
93.
tipping fee is 93.
What was that? 93. The tipping fee now.
Oh.
That is the tipping fee right now. 93.
I mean, I do think it should change. I think it should be above our tipping fee. I just think it's,
So if people if people use green bags with that particular hauler, this is not applicable, correct? Yeah.
Wouldn't increasing it then encourage the use of green bags? Because they would incur this increased cost.
I would argue it would encourage people to switch to a different hauler. Right now, like if you don't want to use green bags, you don't have to.
Right.
And so I if you're not using green bags on a hauler right now and you don't have to, and you can switch to somebody else, I don't think that they're gonna switch to a green bag. I think they would just find a different hauler, which is kind of why I don't want to do it, because we're just incentivizing people to use out of town business.
Or to use green bags like they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Being part
Yeah,
of
but
this community.
but those green bags should be priced higher too. Like, if
Right.
we're gonna set if we're gonna go to 157, then we should absolutely be setting the green bag price to 256. Because otherwise, we're just saying people who are using haulers and green bags can pay less than people who are not.
I mean, I'm also concerned by Ken's comment about the impact on the revenue that we just assumed we were gonna have. And the extra percent on the tax rate.
Was that actually an extra percent?
It's more. I think it's 80,000 is the anticipated revenue increase. And
So I'm getting, well, closer to like 40 to 50,000.
the the budget for transfer station commercial was 120,000.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
In 2023, we're assuming it's 200,000 for 2024 based on $150 a ton. $80,000 increase in revenue is over 1% increase in the tax rate.
So, sorry, what was the total revenue difference?
80.
That feels a little high, but yeah, it's in the same ballpark.
So should we circle back to tipping fee and go back down to, I mean, are there other places like construction debris that we could?
So, oh, that's actually a good point, because so Stephen, you asked if there was, like, on all of the NRA, or at least Andrea's comments, some of the other things. So like construction debris, basically all other towns set that much higher on level with total cost of municipal solid waste. So those numbers typically get bunched into one grouping. They don't charge separately for each one of those. But those would be in the range of $150 to $180 per ton.
Is there a reason we wouldn't do that?
The only thing that I could see there is that, at least for the source separated wood and the shingles, I know there's a fair chunk of that that does end up in a recycling type of program. And so that may be why those have slightly lower fees specifically, but generic construction debris that does not fall under, we know this is going to be recycled, would make sense to increase as well.
Mhm.
So you guys are advocating for more than the 105?
I'm not advocating for that, but I'm saying if that's the way that it makes sense to make sure revenue is matching and it's increase of the tipping fee and the construction debris that is not what we're gonna get revenue from as well, then that's a reasonable way to do that, because it's all kind of the same source stream export.
Okay.
So Concord's construction and demo debris is the same price as their residential, is $155 a ton.
Just so I understand, Thomas, I'm looking at the construction debris, and there's 3 items there. You're just lumping them all together
No,
Most other towns lump them all together, yes, correct.
and say 100, Concord is 155.
I think from all the ones I saw, we're the only ones that broke them out.
Knowing that we actually do a fair decent job of separating them and we have separate piles for
Mhm.
all of these, I think keeping it separated out makes sense. But at the same time, the construction debris kind of catch-all that's there is the one that can't be sent for burning or chipping or, recycling of shingles and tar and so on. So if any of them, that's the one that makes sense to go up, which would encourage and incentivize people to, I don't want to just dump a whole load of stuff. I want to make sure I actually pull the wood out and stick it in the right place. So that will help our recycle style of output and our revenue stream as well.
And I agree with the logic that both of you guys are saying. And I guess my question is, this sheet says it's 105, and I'm just trying to get at, is that a number that we're comfortable with, or should it be increased from this 105?
I think that should be increased to,
Yeah.
to 150 to 160.
But not combine all three.
But
Right.
that's, what I'm hearing is, it's only the pre-sorted construction debris that
Although-
goes up to that.
The
amount.
other places that I am seeing, so I'm re-pulling up all the other towns. They do separate them out, but they do charge the same amount. So like Dunbarton separates them out into pre-sort construction and shingles, but they charge the same rate. But it's also a volume rate, so we can't use it because we use tons. But so what I'm saying is like we could leave them, but also like the other one should probably increase as well. These, because those haven't changed since 2010 either, have they?
Whenever the last update was done, they were all updated.
So can we put 150 down for the pre-sorted debris? As a placeholder?
Does anybody up here object to that number? Okay.
And then wood and shingles.
How about 90 and 95, which still keeps them substantially
Yeah, I think
lower and
that's-
still gives incentive.
Yep, I like that.
Yeah. And then do you want me to just keep going down the list?
Yeah, keep
So
going.
white goods containing refrigerants, she noted that these, Andrea noted that recommended a $15 for, that sounds about right. It feels in line with other things. A lot of these other ones, they're not necessarily like the total cost of disposing them, but more of a token cost to help with it.
Yeah.
And that feels in line, the $15 feels in line.
And again, that seems reasonable. You always want to keep it low enough so that we're not picking them up on the side.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And is this everything from a tiny dehumidifier through a very large freezer? Or,
So that wouldn't include a humidifier. It'd only include refrigerants, so AC units and refrigerators.
well, but they use refrigerant in them to do their job.
Oh, you mean a dehumidifier?
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you said humidifier. So yeah, that would be all of it.
I think 15 is reasonable. I don't have a problem with that.
Do we have any idea of what the overall revenue impact is of each of these changes?
No, because you're making them now.
Yeah, well, historically, how many tons of pre-sorted construction debris, et cetera, have we
So
had?
that number we do have.
What did he ask us? How much of it we get?
Yeah, what's our so I believe our demo tipping and hauling.
The total demo for 223, I didn't break it out, is 336 tons and change. But that is
That's not
including,
cost though,
that's
right?
no,
Yeah.
well, that's 336 tons. And that's including all three of those categories.
So we had, so our demo, our revenue from demo tipping and hauling, was $132,000 last year. And so if we're roughly looking at a 50% increase. It'd be about $66,000. So it's kind of actually in line with with going from 150 to the 93 on the tipping fee. So our estimated revenue from demo tipping and hauling was $132,000. And right now we're recommending increasing it by roughly 50%. So that'd be roughly $66,000 increase in revenue from demo.
Does demo include shingles?
I believe so. I think it's on the same line item. It does. Yeah.
Okay, then we're not talking 50%.
Well, unless we increase the other ones by 50% as well.
I'm just trying to get an understanding.
I
for
would say
what
your
being offset.
better estimate would be 35 to 40%. Because you're dealing with all three.
So 48.8, so say around $50,000. Yeah. That number sounds right.
Where's that revenue coming, that number coming from?
Our estimated budget for 2024.
Looking at the 2023 report. It's like our revenue. That would have been like 28,450.
Let's see this. I might have cost, not revenue. This was under revenue expense. Commercial.
Seems like you should figure out the fees that are correct.
Yeah,
And then we'll figure out the revenue and the budget impact.
Yeah.
From that.
Agreed.
I don't think we should
Yeah.
you should be setting fees based on desired revenue.
I
agree.
wanted to get to the same place you did. I thought we'd do it just as we do, agree on a number for each item. As opposed to having to go back again to the same thing. That's all. But either way.
Okay, so we've done refrigerants at 15. Tires,
Tires across
Like-
different fee schedules are all over the map.
Mhm.
All over the map.
is that recommendation from, who's that from, Neil?
This is the Andrea sheet.
That's
that
Andrea,
she-
okay.
Andrea
Yeah.
Folsom, who works
The-
for NRA.
Do
Mhm.
we have a hard time getting rid of tires?
I don't know.
No,
I know there's
No.
always plenty there.
they save them until there's a full load and then it goes. So yeah.
I know it's not easy to get rid of them. That's
What
why
I
I'm
don't
asking.
see on that schedule is the smaller tires that I often see thrown over there. Which,
You mean like bicycle tires?
no, I'm thinking more,
Lawnmower-
more
lawnmowers.
like, small
Lawnmowers.
lawnmower.
Yeah.
Like if someone had a
Four-wheelers.
go-kart or a four-wheeler or something like that, because those are all smaller than all of those items.
So,
Would they just be charged the passenger or small tire fee and call it the same, or how does that work?
some break it out, some don't. Like,
I mean, I'm fine either way. I just want to make sure that it's clear and not like missing. So someone's, oh yeah, I don't have to pay anything when they should be, or we were expecting them to. Or I don't want someone to pay when we're not expecting them to.
I don't know what the current state is for someone bringing little, in theory, would they be paying $4?
That would be my guess, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay. Well, maybe we can. So that does
We could
not,
just amend it to say passenger and smaller tires.
yeah. Okay.
yeah, I'm good with that. And then, yeah, the tires are all over the map.
Mhm.
So should we go with the recommendation of 15?
Yeah, I think 15 looks, I
And
think
then
15 for
35.
that. I don't know about 35 for larger tires. I mean, if you have a larger tire and you have like 6 larger tires and you have to spend that much money, like, is that the point where you start chucking it in the woods? I don't know.
Tires is probably what we find in the woods the most.
Hmm. Do we currently not charge for larger?
Doesn't look like it.
I don't think we really take larger tires.
Oh. Should we talk about not taking larger tires?
Well, that would be like a tractor tire or something. of that
Yeah.
nature, I would-
I mean, I don't know what the tire situation is. Does it make sense for us to draw the
And,
line?
and or heavier, larger trucks. Because that's only light truck and light trailer that's
Mhm.
listed. We're not doing, the recommendation that I see there is by inch.
Yeah,
And we don't have that broken down, so that would be, especially with, is it a light truck or is it a passenger, even though it's basically the same tire off of a different vehicle? Because that all blurs now, especially with SUVs.
I think what might make sense is tires under.
22 inch.
So 20 to 25 from other fee schedules seems to be the larger tires.
hmm
So 20 to 25 would be $20. Passenger vehicle would be $10, and then under 20 inches would be, or sorry, or I guess
Under 17.
under 17 would be like $5.
So 20 to 25 is considered larger, and you said what price?
$20.
Okay,
For which size?
20 to 25.
20 to 25, which matches some other ones.
And
So 5, 10, 20.
Were you not supportive of the 15 increase for the light truck and light trailer?
So would be
5, 15. and
5,
20?
15 and 20.
That's what, that's what I thought we were going, yeah.
Sorry.
And help me, who are these recommendations from and what is their position
So-
to be able to make the recommendation correctly?
This schedule is from a resident of town, Andrew Folsom, who also works for the NRRA and has
Okay.
been doing a bunch of the background research for all of the transfer station numbers for the NRRA. And then she's also on the waste reduction committee.
Thank you. Just wanted to make
These-
sure that we
yeah.
weren't just looking at kind of,
Totally.
because
And
it's just a name.
I just want to be I want to be very clear as well. These are not NRRA recommendations, and they are not waste reduction committee recommendations. They are her recommendations, but they were extremely helpful. Like, she's done a lot of research across towns and stuff.
Can you give me those sizes again?
Under 17 is 5,
And then 17 to 20?
17 to 20 is 15.
Got it.
And 20 to 25 is
20,
20,
And we don't accept anything bigger.
right.
I guess.
I
So
think
you're
that's,
not gonna take things like a tractor tire.
And do we want to rename the categories just so people don't say, I have a certain size, but it's not a passenger tire?
I think it should just be tires this size, this
Size.
size, this size.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting.
Do-
Yeah.
Should we create a larger tire size that is plus, so that, for example, the tractor tires don't all end up in the woods?
we have a
don't know.
sense of
That's a
like,
I can't
25
find
Does
find
anybody
anyone else
take
that's taking
those?
them.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Neil, do you know
We might
what
be the only
the
one that would do
tire
it.
situation, like, is it a burden if we get massive tractor tires to like?
I don't know if wherever they go takes them, so I
Hmm,
don't
okay,
really see larger tires there. I would have to check on that.
What if we leave that and don't
I would
address the
suggest
larger
that we
tires?
ask, and if they do
Yeah.
take it, that we add it. Because we can always meet to do that at another time.
Yep.
So the next one is the off-hour emergencies. That feels low.
hmm
The 60 or the 100?
The 60 definitely feels low. I have no idea what that should be at, but
What does this mean exactly?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
in our ordinance.
oh my God, I got dump
No.
pumps.
In our ordinance, there's there's the hours of operation, and then we specifically say that the transfer station can be open for off-hour use depending on the operator. And so this is the fee that we charge if someone wants to use the transfer station not during the open hours.
It's just $60 for however long or per.
Well, they still have to do whatever they still have to pay whatever fees they're gonna pay.
Right,
that-
right.
But yeah, it's just.
But let's say what they're open, they say, oh, I say, oh, I'm doing something and I need to bring my trash in.
Takes like 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's $60 per hour, just $60 for the
Right now, it's just $60.
I think it's a flat fee.
That's a good point.
Is this ever, like, is this used often?
Not too often.
I
I
was
wonder
gonna
what the
say,
purpose was for.
when is
I'm
the
sure-
last time it was used? How much is it?
Probably used, maybe used for like the fair, for
Oh.
example,
Hmm.
that needs to
Sorry,
be.
wait, yeah,
We use a situation like that, calling in from the fair.
Oh.
So we paid the hourly rate of the person who came in at an extended rate, I think it was. As well as that fee, as well as our dumping fee.
got it.
So that's where, I think that's a one-time fee on top of an hourly rate on top of. the
Oh.
dumping fee.
It was originally put into place for septic hauling and everyone.
Oh. Thank you.
Extremely helpful.
Thank you.
But our ordinance doesn't say anything about an hourly rate, right?
It
That's more of a
does.
contract thing.
We basically cover the costs, so it's the rate of the employee that's there.
Well, so if that's needed for like the fair time, it's a $60 and then if they have to pay all the other stuff. I mean, that's what you're saying, right? That's just a one-time fee and then you pay for the person.
As long as the requirement to pay for staff is there, I'm fine with it being reasonably low.
That's what I was thinking.
So right now, there's no actual requirement for hours. Because the ordinance just says. After hour use shall only be authorized and supervised by the facility supervisor on a case-by-case basis. And then we have this, so there's no other listing of what that should be. So if we wanted to add an hourly, this would be where we put it.
Maybe we say 60 plus.
Cost.
Cost.
Okay,
I like that.
fine with that. Because also, this does give, I mean, there's discretion there, like.
As
it's
they say,
not-
they're already doing that, so
Right.
that's just
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
easy way to clarify it.
And this doesn't like give anyone the right to say like, you have to open it for me. It's still up to.
Mhm.
It's funny, you don't think of that when you're at the fair. Where does the
No.
trash go on Saturday?
The side of the road.
Well, right, but
Unfortunately.
we don't want that either, do we?
So into the electronics and the commercial
Mhm.
electronics, right now we kind of have different rates. Some of them are based on pounds, some of them are based on size. I think Andrew's big recommendation is to go by pounds. Everywhere else I see generally goes by pounds. And it usually fits into a 20 to 30 cents per pound. And it kind of collapses this whole, I mean, I don't know how often a projection television goes. Or whether or not $30 makes sense, but like a per pound thing kind of makes more sense here.
How many pounds is a TV?
New TVs are a lot
Lighter.
less, they're a lot lighter,
New
yeah.
TVs are like 15, 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Older flat screens or like plasmas are heavy. And then, of course, you have tube or projection that get quite heavy.
How do we get charged when they?
If we're not
Mhm.
specifying TVs, how is the breakout done for what is a residential electronic versus a commercial electronic?
So,
It'd be easy for example, a computer to be either, or a
Right.
router to be either.
so I would almost make the argument, it doesn't matter that much. So for example, if we have commercial electronics right here, like if we're saying residential electronics should just be 20 cents per pound. Commercial electronics right now, we're charging 15 cents per pound. So, it's kind of similar to,
And like, then you've got two different TVs. A large TV is $15, but a larger than 25 is 20. And
Right.
Like, it doesn't make sense the way it is.
Can we just simplify it and say it's 30 cents per pound?
that,
No
that-
matter if it's residential or commercial?
She also puts in consider looking at whether we no longer accept commercial electronics.
But what actually is commercial electronics?
Well, I was
That's
wondering
the
that,
real-
like, is it like
commercial
business?
electronics, so commercial electronics would be, yeah, if there's a business in town that has a bunch of computers, that would be commercial electronics. If it's a residence in town, that would not be that.
Right.
So
So
they
it's-
drop
it's-
them off once a week
but-
instead of all at once. and
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything.
That's too easy to abuse.
Well, unless they're all the same rate, in which
Right.
case, doesn't matter.
That's why I think we should just be 30 cents per pound for electronics.
What are the other electronics listed?
Oh, it goes on.
It's
CPUs
like,
are
oh
big.
my God, yeah. Microwave, small appliances.
Yeah, so you've got the different TVs and stuff here, so having them in two places doesn't make any sense.
But you're talking just go all per pound for anything to do with
All
electronics.
of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we go on a per pound, does that require much more staff time?
At least they're not trying to figure out if it's large or medium.
Yeah.
I would want to be that guy.
Do they ever sell any of this electronic stuff that we get? Did somebody come and pick it up and give us money for
There's
that?
an electronics recycler.
Is there?
And we,
Okay,
I'm sure not all of it's actually recycled, but
but they do come
we
and
do get
show up.
some portion of some of the stuff.
Okay,
Other stuff we have to pay to have taken away.
okay.
Finally found a tractor tire price. $50 to $100 per tire.
So maybe that means we don't take anything above 20, what was it? 25 on the tires. Well, so I'm curious, like, I don't know how much of a burden electronics become on this idea of just like not accepting commercial electronics, like. Unless we're making good money on it, it's not like a huge strain for the staff. It seems like worth considering just not accepting commercial. I mean, I don't know how frequently this is happening.
I don't
or-
think that happens very often. And I think the reason that's by the pound and everything isn't because it usually comes in one on one where it's easier to weigh if you're getting
Mhm.
10 or more items all at once.
Okay. So if we move to per pound on both of these. I don't even know where to begin on what the,
It's interesting the way that it changes things, because for example, microwaves are listed at only $2 and they're fairly heavy compared to some of the other things on the
Mhm.
list.
And a monitored now is pretty light.
Yeah. And having, like, it doesn't make, whether there's commercial and or not separations, I don't think there necessarily should be.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just we have the list so that we don't have, for example, competing TVs and monitors and stuff like that. And it's just by size of a display of some sort. And then you're not mixing residential and commercial, and which is what or the other. So if you want to do it per item, like we can simplify that pretty easily. And then whether it's commercial or not, you can say if it's more than 10 or more than 15 items, then do it at 30 cents a pound or something like that.
Or just do 30 cents a pound for everything, residential and commercial.
So I'm trying to think about this from an operational standpoint, in that several times there are many things that are not on this list that would just never get accounted for. That if someone's got, for example, a small router right now, it'll go into that electronics recycling. Whereas if they have to pay for it, they're just gonna chuck it in the dumpster. It's just gonna fit there, no problem. And at the same time, for something that either isn't gonna be charged or is gonna be charged like 10 cents or 15 or 30 cents, you don't wanna take 10 minutes of getting a staff person, getting them over, finding the right person, getting it on a scale, and when they may or may not be handling scales of another larger vehicle and so on. So you're actually adding a lot of staff complexity for the number of one-off things that go into electronic recycling by doing it per pound. And so I'm a little bit worried about it in that aspect. from a purely, if we don't think of that aspect of the 30 cents per pound, just, it's simple, it makes sense, but I'm a little worried from that aspect of constantly having to take a transfer station employee over to look at a scale and then charge somebody a few cents.
Mhm.
And then if you're charging them a few cents, are they accepting a credit card for 30 cents?
So yeah, so you're suggesting setting like a baseline, any electronics under this rate are free. Anything above this we would charge for in terms of weight?
Well, that's why, like, if you're gonna do weight, do it with still, don't care whether it's commercial or not, but if it's over X number of
No.
items.
Or above an X number of, like. Because above a certain number of items, then you have the problem between like a router and a microwave. But if we said like items above 10 pounds are gonna be X amount, it allows, like, you would have to have the operator make a judgment call, like, they'd have to make a judgment call before weighing it, where they'd be like, oh, it's a router, it's not 10 pounds, don't worry about it.
So you're still adding the time of that person, because currently someone will just come in and toss it in the pile. They don't even have to talk to the transfer station person. So you're adding another interaction and more staff time.
I mean, I would probably, like, if it was me, I'd probably still talk to the person, cause like, I don't know which pile to throw.
I mean, I talk to them all the time.
That's what I'm saying, like, I think even if they're coming in to drop anything, they probably should talk to them to figure out where to put it. Just so they're not like dropping
Yeah, well, a lot of people aren't that conscientious.
Mhm.
They're just gonna dump it and quick,
there.
get out of there.
How about if this section, we go back to the people who are doing it and ask.
I was gonna say, ask
the
them what
easiest
they
way to
see.
do it
Yeah.
is, because it sounds like we're trying to make it more complicated and adding a lot of work
Mhm.
for a lot less money.
Yeah.
The other two last things on here then are propane tanks and mattresses. Which we probably should accept. Going rate for propane tanks is like somewhere between $5 and $20. And I think Concord does 35 for a mattress.
Yes.
And to me, that just makes sense, since most places that you buy a mattress from will take it free anyway. So it makes perfect sense that if they don't go do it for them, then we'll do it for the cost of whatever it costs us.
The mattress just goes in the hopper.
We just dump them in the hopper?
And that costs us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't cost you $35 for that mattress.
But if we no longer allow them in the hopper and charge for them and dispose of them a different way, then
They either need to go hopper or demolition. That I don't think there's any other place
They'd
for
be
them
one
to
of the
go.
two. So maybe at $20 or something, because it's a little bit more than it probably costs to dump it, but it's reasonable if someone hasn't had it taken away.
If we're going from zero.
Mhm.
So 20 for mattresses, 10 for propane.
What did you say for propane? was
$10.
reasonable?
Is there a maximum propane tank?
Yeah, we should probably set size on propane tanks.
Yeah, for Concord, it was $10 for under the 10-pound tank and $20 for above that.
That sounds about right.
That sounds reasonable.
You said that weight breakdown one more time.
So that was, yeah. Can you say that?
$10 for an under 10-pound tank and $20 for an over 10-pound tank.
But I think we should specify 10 to 25 pounds. 'Cause you can't get
Yeah.
too large.
Fair enough.
Did you get that now?
10 to 25 pounds.
Quick question for you. We don't charge for metal, right? No propane tanks come under the aegis of being metal, it's steel.
They can't be, they can't go the same way. They have to be handled differently than straight metal.
Unfortunately, they have to be treated as if they were full.
Yeah.
Someone cutting that part. Oopsie.
Okay, so we,
Tipping fee.
we've got the tipping fee. We're gonna circle back on electronics.
I do think the tipping fee should be adjusted. I'm just not super comfortable without doing it in tandem with whatever we're doing with green bags.
And I don't I don't disagree with that, but I'm just worried that we've made a assumption on our revenue for the tax rate. And that's just gonna, there's gonna be an impact for not doing it. If we don't do it now, when would we get around to doing it?
Well, I think we should do it. I think we should do it about now. I think whatever we should do with green bags, we should do right now. Not tonight, but like before town meeting, we should be resetting the green bag prices. I
To
just,
coincide with this.
right,
Yeah, that, I mean, I understand the merit to that. If we're gonna do that, I agree it should happen before town meeting and that we should try to set that date tonight. Cause I think there's a lot of people here that are interested in green bags.
Yes.
And tipping fee. And for the tax impact reasons, we need to have an end date where we make those decisions.
Should you set the tipping fee and then use that to aid in setting the bag fee?
but if we don't end up changing the bag fee, then I would say the tipping fee's off.
Or we could agree now that whatever percentage increase we do to the tipping fee, the same percentage increase will go to green bags.
I'm not Hopkinton, but that sounds reasonable.
But you're effectively saying we should set the green bag price at $2.56.
I'm saying we should be, if we want to discuss it, yes, that's, one way to do it. And because, I was saying with these other increases, what is the revenue impact? And maybe we don't have to go all the way up to 150 to get the same revenue impact because of what other things were changing.
Can we try to set a date? Seems like that's the direction we're going for this part of the conversation.
A date to discuss tipping fee and green bags.
Or
Might I suggest that you separate that to just be green bags? Because we're here to try and
Yeah.
make decisions as joint town.
Mm-hmm.
And if we set this tipping fee, which seems to be under the cost that you've estimated that it actually costs anyway, then you can do whatever you want to with the green bags as far as a town, but that seems like a reasonable. We're starting to get everybody on what should be the playing field level. And if you decide you don't want to do that, that's up to your town and your own revenue stream.
But see, even in that case, if that's the case, if we're not using green bags, so for example, you're not using green bags, I would then say that rate should be the $93 a ton. Because that's the same rate that anyone else is paying. Because right now, ignore Hopkinton, we just talk about Webster. You either pay a hauler or you take it yourself. And the take it yourself cost, everyone is splitting the operational cost of having the staff there. So the only additional cost is how much waste is going to the hopper. So you either have the waste that you're bringing there, or you have the waste that the attendants are taking, or the haulers are taking there. But that increase in waste is only costing the taxpayer $93 per ton. So if in the absence of green bags, I would say this tipping fee, because we're not accepting waste from out of town, that tipping fee should just be whatever it is that we're being charged. Like, it should just be the tipping fee, because everything else is being equally split between every other member. Once you start adding in green bags, then the whole scenario becomes more complicated, because you're trying to offset all this other stuff with the green bag revenue. You're not equally sharing it between every single taxpayer based on property value. You're now trying to split it between how much waste you're generating. But in the absence of those green bags, that price should just be the tipping fee. And then everyone would be equally sharing the cost of the transfer station.
If I may, a slight side topic to this, since we have empty trash representatives and maybe one of the others, how do you handle the separation of recyclables that are within the amount that you're taking?
We don't.
We do not.
It's not profitable for us, and there'd be an extreme cost difference to our customers.
And so is it that you tell them, hang on to your recycling and then take them on your own, or does it just
You either
all?
put it in the bag and we take it, it goes in the hopper, or you can take it yourself.
Thank you. So in that regard, since we get revenue from recyclables, that would not seem unreasonable to get this closer to the normal fee, being that we're not going to get the revenue from the recyclables from those people who are hiring haulers.
We're not only not getting the revenues, but we're adding additional costs.
And additional waste, yes.
Unless they're driving the recycling themselves,
Yes.
which they could be.
So, sorry. So our customers they're paying their taxes, so they're paying this fee already a month. Plus now we are also on top of that paying that fee a second time. How is that fair to our customers that they have to pay it twice? When the rest of the town, yeah, they can choose to take it themselves, that's fine. But if they're opting to pay us to take it, what, they are opting to pay it twice. I mean, it's not fair to our essentially small part of the town is now going to offset and give you guys an $80,000 revenue potentially just on their back. I don't feel like that's really fair. You're talking about a 60+% increase on only us.
Plus, a side note, if you guys go to the 150 something, we can't afford to go, we're pulling out and we're losing our revenue. So that's gonna affect your budget.
Yeah, I'm not
And we also
following
don't
the,
have that waste.
what's that? Well, I know, I mean, that brings me back to my original question of how we ended up in the situation we're in, being a small town that accepts commercial pickup, but only from a single entity.
The others
And-
have, right? The street because they don't want to do.
So,
We're only 50.
well, except our ordinance says you can't come here from out of town if you're commercial.
And
Right.
that's why our customer base is these two towns.
Right. But I'm saying like, I think it's worth discussing how we ended up in this situation and like, does it make sense? I'm not following the logic though of people whose trash you pick up, if they're not using green bags, you're saying are getting,
Well,
hit
if the
twice
green
and-
bag customers, they pay their yearly tax, plus they pay the green bag. And so they're paying twice. Our non-green bag customers are paying their yearly taxes, plus they're paying for our full yearly.
So if we go to $150 a ton, the purpose of that $150 a ton is to theoretically cover the full cost of also operating the transfer station. So if you are in a scenario where your trash is going into that $150 a ton, then part of that cost is to cover the operational cost of the transfer station. However, our budget is also covering the whole cost of the transfer station, and that's shared equally across everybody, and you're paying that no matter what. So your baseline is you're gonna be paying every single citizen is gonna be paying 180, or every household is gonna pay $185 a year just for the operation of the transfer station. And then if you are in this very small subset of using an in-town hauler,
Is
Then
it a
you-
very small subset or is it much bigger than that?
Under 400.
yeah, that's about what I've estimated. So if you're in that subset, then you are paying an additional amount to cover the cost of the transfer station, which is what that difference between $93 and $150 is for. So in that case, that subset is the only subset that is paying extra for the operation of the transfer station. And the flip side is true, where if we increase the green bags to cover the cost of the full thing, then the green bags are now doing the same thing.
right?
So like, unless it's all across the board, unless everybody is paying the full cost of the waste, then if that's not true, some group is subsidizing some other group.
Right. And then you come back to compliance, because in theory, if everyone used the green bags, we could raise the price and that would be much more fair. But I thought the issue with MT, the change that we allowed was that if they have a green bag load, they're not paying.
That is true. Yeah, so
Right.
that is true.
So that's how, so people who aren't using green bags, I mean, that's kind of on them. And so they have to absorb the cost of, the cost of the tipping fee. That's sort of that's how we balance that out.
Their yearly $189 supposed to go to covering the cost of the transfer fee.
But same with anyone who's using a green bag. So,
180 I think what she's trying to say is 189, this offset the wages, the equipment.
mhm.
The green bag is to offset the weight of the disposal costs.
Well, right now it's not offsetting much of anything. I mean, we haven't raised the price in 15 years. No, we have not. We just, because they're like the business at issue, I think our
And
Webster
I
firm
asked
wanted
the
to ask a
question of
question.
them
So
since
I
they
didn't
were
mean to get
here.
into a back and forth, but, so really quick before I forget, metal is no charge and stumps. Do we want to raise that? And what's the issue with metal having no charge?
We make money on it.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so those are good.
The brush under 5 inches to me goes in the same category. We should ask them if it's easier to deal with it or not.
Okay. Okay, so in terms of the tipping fee, I guess like Webster, since you're not dealing with the green bag situation, from your perspective, 150 makes sense. Yeah.
But see,
Okay.
even in that scenario, that doesn't make sense to me though, because you're just asking people to pay more for hauling, pay extra for hauling. Because everyone is right now, everyone is paying the same amount. Everyone is paying the same amount for the operation of the transfer station.
So that's actually not true. And that gets to two factors. One is that currently most everything is paid from taxes. And you're going to have properties that pay taxes that have no houses. You're going to have properties with really large houses that pay a lot of taxes. You're going to have small houses with lots of people in them that generate lots of trash but don't pay much taxes. And so everything is not equal to start with, and it's never going to be in that aspect.
That's a function of our entire tax
Correct.
system. You can say the same thing about schools. You can say the same thing about.
Absolutely. And so the benefit towards doing something like a higher tipping fee is twofold. One, it helps to make the taxation inequality lower, perhaps by adding another one, a different inequality. But two, it encourages that, or I should say, it takes advantage of the people who are creating more trash and or are paying for convenience already and willing to spend up and above that amount already. That's where you're getting your money from, not the people who can't afford to run the transfer station and pay their taxes.
So I agree, you are changing the taxation scenario. You're going from a property value to
an amount of waste use.
No, because right now it's a flat rate based on quarter. It's not based on how much you use. So like if the entire town is doing pickup, the entire town shares in the same cost because it's not based on bags, it's not based on weight. It's just based on a flat rate.
Well, it is because it's per ton.
No, but that tonnage cost is separated across everybody that's using that service.
Sure.
Right, so you individually are not paying based on your amount of weight. You individually are paying based on the total accumulated weight of everybody using that service, which right now is half the town. Half the town is using curbside pickup. And so what you're
They
saying.
said it was less than 400 customers.
Well, them specifically, but what you're saying is you're choosing a group of people that you are accepting to say, these people, we will charge more. And you're saying we will charge these people more because they are willing to pay more for pickup. And that feels.
I'm saying that we should charge the amount that it's supposed to be. And if other charges need to change to make that correct, then fine. But
When the fee was first set at $100 12 years ago, what was the rationale for that then? Because the tipping fee would have been much less. So, if you wanted to look at it as just what's the inflation increase since it was last set?
The last time it was said, it was the tipping fee plus 10%.
Okay, so we do not have a good, clear path forward on our side right now. I completely hear where you're coming from, and it feels weird for us to be trying to do this sort of contortionist thing to make these numbers make sense, when at the end of the day, I will remind us that last year at this time, we had a warrant article to get rid of green bags. And the agreement was sort of largely was like, we'll put, people will put renewed energy into this to try to make it work, and we'll try to figure out compliance. And I mean, I think there's still the question of should we have green bags? And if we did remove that from the equation, I don't know sitting here exactly what that does to the whole empty trash tipping fee equation. But that is one potential path forward. Otherwise, I don't know how we get around setting a tipping fee that makes sense. And yes, if it means raising the green bag price out of a matter of fairness and things adding up, then we just need to do that. I mean, I don't know where else to go. This.
We don't have a petition warrant article on green bags this year, do we?
No.
When does that window close?
February
6th.
6th.
Yeah.
So it could
Put anything
possibly.
on the warrant.
Yeah, we could, I mean, last year we had it as a draft warrant article.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily saying that is the path. I'm saying that is a path as we sit here trying to bend ourselves around making this work. So I think we're in a weird position of, obviously, the reality is we have one business that this impacts, and that feels very awkward because we don't want to be doing things that harm them. I think we're in this weird place where most towns our size, it appears, do not allow commercial haulers to bring in residential trash. And so we're in a very weird position all around. Just putting that out there. So in terms of timing on this fee schedule, I think we probably know, it sounds like Webster would be okay with 150 on this, on the tipping fee. I don't want to put words in your mouth. It sounds like maybe you're in that zone. And so in terms of us agreeing on a final fee schedule, where do we have to be date wise?
You can change these whenever you want.
I think earlier we were talking about the impact of this on the tax. And so we want to have that squared away by town meeting.
Yeah.
ideally by your budget presentation.
Yeah,
Which is kind of where it was.
well, I've got a budget committee meeting Wednesday. I mean, it can change after that, but I'm gonna have to at least let them know that there's discussion, this is up in the air. And I think it's February 7th is the,
Yes.
all
Budget
budgets
hearing.
are presented. But,
So let me ask the simple question to maybe move forward here. Who besides one person, who else is potentially against the 150 tipping fee? Because if it's only one, then, and that's mostly based on the green bag discussion, that seems like a separate discussion for you as a board to have. And if there's more of you that have reservations or want to think about something else, then you should think about that and then present those new numbers and go back.
And we're missing Jeff too.
Mhm.
I feel like he will have opinions on this. I mean, I have reservations about the 150, knowing that we have one commercial hauler in town who it affects. It's just a reality I feel like we need to grapple with. So I don't know how you guys feel, but
I mean, because I'm doing all the budget stuff, I wanna, be comfortable that the 80,000 we built into the budget as additional revenue is going to be there. And, so I wanted to get an idea on what kind of revenues we'd be getting from the other increases. And that might mean, okay, instead of 150, we can go to 120. And that's where I'm at.
I agree with sort of Ken's position that he articulated, and I'm also struggling with what is the long-term plan for the transfer station and green bags?
Mhm.
And it's hard for me to separate this tipping fee conversation out from that one. And yeah, I mean, we've been tying ourselves in knots this evening. Sort of getting at the edges of some of that. And thinking about Thomas's sort of very different proposals that weren't proposals. For,
Explanations.
yeah, how you move forward with like town-wide pickup or I'm just struggling with the viability of sort of the green bag program right now. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but that's what I'm thinking right now. It's just like, how do we make this work?
So a question for, I guess, Neil. Obviously, this draft that was shown was to be effective February 5th. Are we already paying the higher rates at the transfer station for the new agreements, or do those come in on February 5th? So that this was to match?
No, that they started January 1. This was when you were originally scheduled and then would have had time to have a public hearing. And because I think we were originally scheduled to meet in December and have this. So that the February 5th is not realistic.
Yeah. So we're already behind on all of that. So I'm reluctant to say, hey, let's try to meet again in a couple more weeks after all of the budget hearings have happened to try to go back and do this again. So what out of this can we agree on to at least set a baseline of increased fees to offset at least some of the expected increase in costs?
so we're in agreement, it sounds like, on all of the other
Yeah.
items, I think.
I mean, I think that from my perspective, the tipping fee has to go hand in hand with green bag pricing, whatever we're gonna be looking at for that. And I think we need to commit to doing that soon. I think that going the 10% above the tipping rate now makes sense as a placeholder. If we can place everything on that, and then if we as a board committed to coming back with a proposed change to the tipping fee by a certain date, at least the numbers are increasing in the right direction. All the fees are getting scheduled right. If you have a commitment from us to come back to with a specific date when we can say, what is that number going to be? Does it have to be? It doesn't have to be within the next month, but.
I mean, it'll affect our budget and amendments after the budget hearing, so.
So it does have to be in the next.
It has to be basically within the next week and a half.
Forgot about the revenue side.
The other one that we didn't touch at all because it has no change listed is the permit sticker. That's $1, and since it's not a once a year, which many are, maybe it should be $5 to easily cover the cost of the sticker, because
I feel like we should be covering the
So,
cost of the
yeah.
sticker, but I don't know what that is.
Where does it say $1?
At the
It's
top.
the first
The
line.
top, because it also in the ordinance, it says is up to the clerk. And we don't charge for them right now.
And for a while, I know when we redid them all, well, now that's 2010, we didn't charge. And we bought stickers for both towns out of pay by bag funds to make sure everybody was up to date. That was then.
A note on the permit stickers. So I try to do a count of the permit stickers. At the transfer station, it looks like less than 15% of cars that come through have permit stickers. I did a quick count of the sheet that we have that tracks, because we're, at least from our town, we have less than 1,500. No, it's way less than that. It's 500 plus. We have less than 900 permit stickers, I think, that we're keeping track of right now. So if we did increase that and then properly enforce it, that would be substantial.
I think I have a list of over 1,000.
So the list goes above 1,000, but there's a 500 section gap. It's like it went to 500 and then started at like 1,200.
You don't have to, you don't have the whole list.
Okay, great. That's great.
Good explanation.
Great.
You don't. I do.
Okay, if you have the whole list, that's great. The list
But like that, in many places, and that's usually a lot higher and it's per year. So I feel like unless we're changing it to a year, something like a $5 instead of $1, which is probably what it's always been, would make sense. And it's not like that's gonna change revenues significantly at all. But since we're looking at all of them,
I'm fine with that.
The last time we ordered stickers, they're clearly less than $1 a piece. So that does cover the cost.
Okay. I mean, I don't have a very strong feeling on the stickers. I'm happy to go to 5 if that's what you guys want to do.
I'm
Or
fine with
if
that.
the ordinance says that the clerk
Yeah.
can decide, then I guess that's the reality.
No, I think you should decide.
So we're gonna go to $5 on the sticker?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So Thomas, on the tipping fee issue, so like in a world where green bags no longer existed,
I would, in a world where green bags don't exist, I would say the tipping fee should be whatever the tipping fee is plus 10%. Because across all of our different waste streams, we have said that we want to split the cost evenly through the tax base of operating the transfer station. And so in the absence of green bags, increasing the tipping fee is then saying we want to have people who are using empty trash as their hauler, we want them to pay more. And so in the absence of green bags, that's where I would land. In a world where everybody is using green bags, then I would say the green bag should be set such that the tipping fee component of that is $157 per ton. Because in a green bag world, we're saying you are paying for the entirety of the transfer station based on how much you individually are disposing of or generating as waste. And in that world, then all of that cost gets encompassed in that bag. So to me, that component of the per tonnage weight would be 157.
Mhm. Okay. So I think unless we're gonna seriously consider as a board putting forward an article getting rid of green bags, I feel like we have to function in a green bag world at this moment.
which would then make the 150 make sense, which would then also match up with budget projections.
Correct.
Yeah. And we have to remember that Webster doesn't have green bags, so I don't think we can build that into the equation.
But that's the opposite though. In a world where you don't have green bags, it's the opposite.
What do you mean?
If
I
you
didn't
don't,
follow that, sorry.
if you don't have green bags and you increase the tipping fee, then you're choosing a subset of the population to pay more.
So we're back to like the towns having a mismatch.
This is my problem, is that if we accept that we're living in a green bag world, which, you know, that is what was the town vote. We have all these other problems that we have to work through.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't maybe I missed it, but I haven't seen really great answers for some of those problems.
I
And-
agree.
And as
yeah.
far as I know, the data on, has green bags increased recycling and, are we making money off of it? There aren't really great answers to those questions.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure that we're serving the purpose of the green bags to begin with, and we've created all these problems as a result.
Mhm.
And I am very pro recycling. Like I say this very, very, I don't know what the right word is, but I'm not, excited to say this or proud of this, where the position that I'm in, but it seems to be creating so many issues for us. And for Webster, fair. And for the transfer station employees, I wish in a perfect world, Webster and Hopkinton would all have a pay as you throw. But that's just not the reality we live in.
Mhm.
And so I understand that, we don't have a lot of time and we're in a green bag world right now, but I just don't want to blindly go in that direction when, maybe we need to think outside the box and, get rid of green bags.
So it seems to me we settle on a 150 per ton and have to fix the green bag price. Or we change things and we no longer accept commercial trash, just like other towns who are like us. Or we put forward the idea of getting rid of green bags and say we need to figure out other ways to, I don't know, increase recycling or whatever it is. Because I agree, we have all sorts of problems that seem to be, I mean, in this situation, it's centered around the fact that we have one commercial hauler who functions in town who's impacted by this.
Mhm.
That's one element. The other complicating element is green bags. So and neither feel great. And I think that, I mean, I agree with you. I personally don't think that I think people who are going to recycle either way. I don't think green bags has created some sea change in behavior. So, okay. Can we not have the comments from the audience saying we don't know what we're talking about? Thank you. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out a way to move forward right now. We have not a lot of time
No, I know.
and not a lot of great options.
The only limiting factor is trying to figure out what our revenue is gonna be. And because in a slowed down world, we take a little bit more time to figure out how we fix green bags, and then we match that price so that everyone is paying a fair amount. The only issue with that is the amount of time that will take means that we won't know exactly what those revenues are going to be. However, if we set a floor to that number, we know our revenues are only going to be above that number.
Mhm.
So if we did say we're going to set an increase now to a floor of what we think our minimum is going to be, then we have at least a basis to go to budget committees to have what our budget numbers are going to be. And then we can say pretty confidently, it will only get better than this, because this is what we've agreed to as our floor. And then if we can come up with a way to solve green bags and increase that transfer fee, then we can do that, and our revenues will only be greater.
So are you saying that as a floor, we agree that the increases in the fee schedule will bring us at least $80,000 more in 2024?
I mean, I think that we could probably go through this and do the numbers, because I think that a lot of little things won't be that big, but I think the construction debris, and if we did the 93 plus the 10% will be something. I don't know if it will be exactly the 80, but we can say it will be this number at least. And then if we increase the tipping fee above that to accommodate all of the green bag stuff, then that increases it further. It's also worth noting that if we can correctly get everybody over to green bags, it reduces the budget by a humongous percentage.
And that's a different issue. I agree.
No, I agree, but if we do all this stuff that we're saying, we won't know that either.
I'm trying to see if we can get to some resolution this evening, and I'm just getting a germ of an idea that if we can all agree that, yes, we're going to increase the fee schedule to get us $80,000 more in 2024, is that enough for
this evening.
How about I try one other thing for you?
Absolutely.
Because it looks like we mostly agree on what the fees should be for most things. Though we've said pre-sorted construction should be that high 150 to match. And if we're not doing the tipping fee at that, then that won't match. So what if we basically keep everything we've done, because we've all agreed on it, except say that for now, at least, the tipping fee and the pre-sorted construction debris are 125. It's a lower number, but it's an easily budgeted number that is off, but is still going to be larger than it was. And it starts that chain of we can get to the public hearings and things that we need to, and the included budget recommendations. And if you fix all of the green bag stuff before then and decide it should be higher, then you can let us know and we can all meet again to change that one number. But that way we've agreed we can all move forward.
Yeah, and I don't want to prolong, this discussion more than we need to. So, I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, the other thing that as you and Thomas and Ken were talking was, we also have control of, how much we spend. And that's another way to make the numbers kind of work out too, is, just to commit to spend a little less than we've so far budgeted for.
Yeah.
I appreciate that suggestion. I can live with it.
I think I would ask a follow-up question to empty trash in terms of what that compares to other commercial facilities you're looking at.
Still alive,
But like,
not much.
No, yeah, 120 would be more comfortable, but that's.
And even really, from our point, we would be comfortable with the 10% on top of what you're getting charged about. Because at the end of it, it still comes down to, yes, our commercial customers are commercial works, but they also want a big burden on our tax system. And they're big taxpayers. So I know that there's quite a few out there that are gonna be very upset with us when we send out newsletters that say, hey, guess what, your price is going up this much. And this is why, because we're not gonna hide it. So I think there's gotta be some sort of thing here that we're willing to work together. I mean, we've been very forthcoming with Thomas. There are other things that people in town don't see. And it's something that just because the budget's coming due, you made that budget with money you didn't know if you were gonna have it. So that shouldn't fall back on this. I mean, that's like me saying, hey, I'm gonna have an extra 100 customers this year. I'm gonna do my yearly budget on there. It doesn't work.
I think what we're trying to do with the tipping fee is be fair, to be
That's
clear.
why.
Yeah.
Not cutting.
No,
The what it costs and the 10%. We feel is fair. Because you still have the tax base from a lot of people.
so where were we just with the numbers at 120? You suggested 125.
I had
for
suggested
degree.
125, they said 120 is what most other places would have charged. So
What if we
maybe
up
that's the
debris?
number that we should start with.
We can up debris and lower the tipping fee.
Well, if they're all 120, but yeah, because it would be both. To keep them even.
Or maybe just,
slightly
yeah, they're
higher.
both 120. Okay.
Yeah. But at least
Okay.
then we have something appropriate to move forward with until you figure out your green bags.
Yeah. I think that's probably the best way for us to move forward at this moment. So is everyone in agreement on that?
Had we agreed on what we were doing with electronics?
Neil was
We're
gonna
gonna check with staff.
Yeah.
do we have to hold a public hearing after this?
For fees changes,
These
yes.
changes, okay. So the status is we all agree on what we're on agreed upon changes, then we each individually have public hearings and then they go into place.
Right.
So in terms of like the electronics, we've agreed upon it, how we're gonna do it. We'll put it together. We'll both have the same.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, based on staff feedback for.
Right. We don't want to have to hire more people. Right. Because you want to take your TV in.
Yeah.
So have we coalesced around 120 or 125?
I think 120.
And Neil, would be too much to ask the before Wednesday budget committee if you could give me a ballpark estimate on revenues, the additional revenues from this higher fee schedule to the extent we have it.
We can try to do that.
Well, that's.
We do have an election tomorrow too.
I think probably our fees are okay. I think our
That's true.
budget's okay. Which is why we budget conservatively instead of your recommended numbers.
I know you budget conservatively, and I argue all the time. Thank you.
Okay.
Did we do it?
I don't know if we need to vote. Do we, is consensus good here until we have,
I mean, I'm fine moving forward. I'm still personally kind of uncomfortable with it, but I'm also comfortable being not in complete, like a
well, I
1,000,000%
think,
agreement.
I think we
I-
agree to, we're gonna work on the green bag situation to make it more fair.
Right.
And like this all, it's like,
Is the fact of coming up with.
I mean, yeah, if we had like another 3 months, that would be amazing. I am comfortable.
We've had 10 years on this.
12.
12 years on this.
Who's counting years? Come on.
Neil and I.
I still think, yeah, there's still so much work for green bags. Yeah, yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
there's more for green bags, but I think that's our own problem. And if a board member wants to propose, we put it on the warrant article, we can have that conversation. But for your sake, perhaps we can end this part of the conversation.
Okay.
So
We're
we'll check with
cons-
staff. We'll get this up and get copies
Okay.
out and we'll compare them and make sure that we match.
So I have one question for transfer station and recycling. And that is that when you look at the revenues, glass is always highly recycled, but has zero revenue. And I know you've been crushing it and using it for base load and sort of things with your highway department. How much offset in cost is that for the highway department? And should that not be put as revenue towards the transfer station?
We could certainly try to figure that. It has not been used a lot. Actually, evidently, there was originally working with NRRA. We were taking here Sutton and maybe Warner's glass. And then NRRA would pay to have that crushed and then it was used. They're no longer doing that. So basically probably we've used it in a few spots, but it's more like sand than it is like gravel. So it's hard to use. I could try to get a sense of that. I know we used it on the new road, for example, to the high school when that was rebuilt, it was used in there and it's surrounded in plastic. So I don't know how much it saves with the offset of having to have the crusher come in and do it, but we can figure that out.
And all right, is there other transfer station stuff that involves us?
I don't think
Well,
so.
There's not a purple bag, is there?
So on
can only
that
dream.
note, if you decide that you want to open public comment on transfer station items, I would like to stay for that. Otherwise,
We are over an hour late on our other public appointment.
Oh,
And so I would love to get that appointment going. Because I feel bad about that. So unless you really would like to hear and don't want to stay, I mean, Ian, I feel bad. We're over an hour late on your presentation. Others have thoughts on this?
And how long do we think it'll take to do the other public appointment?
I don't know. Do you have a thought on how long you need for 10 minutes? Do you mind waiting 10 minutes?
That's
It's up to you. I'm driving with you.
Oh, that's
Oh.
right.
I can leave.
I think we need to have, I feel bad. He's been sitting here for over an hour.
Is that the
so.
only other?
That's the
thing?
only other public appointment, and then we can do all of our other stuff. So Ian, unless you would like to wait and sit through transfer station related public comment, I I leave it to you.
Longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah. I think you should come up since we're so late. Thank you for your patience.
That's fine.
You don't mind.
No.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah. Because if they're gonna have public comment on the transfer station, they should both hear it and be able to respond if needed.
Thank you. Trying to balance our.
Game is gonna take these, so.
Okay.
Good. All right.
It's up to
Thank you.
And thank you, Dana.
Like, please, advice.
Okay, so our next public appointment is Ian Hart to talk about economic development.
Yes, thank you very much. This was a very interesting conversation about, I'm usually being flipped. I wasn't being flipped about that. It's a really.
Appreciate that. You can see we're
challenging-
trying to grapple with these difficult and complicated
I-
questions that have deep histories and no good answers.
Yes. Thanks again to the board for approving the RPI last at the December 11th meeting. We just wanted to come back and talk briefly about the TIF. Again, just a reminder, this is at Hart's Corner. Near Hart's Corner, sorry, down by the gravel pit in West Hopkinton. About 150 acres of property, most of which cannot be developed. Just under $3 million of 2023 assessed value. I'm just sort of bringing us back to that conversation from last month. The proposal, the development potential includes commercial or mixed use, which has a sort of high return on the to the town. There's potential recreational opportunities as well as energy. And then the potential uses for the TIF fund include environmental assessment, cleanup, road or intersection improvements, sewer or other utility improvements, public amenities, or property acquisition. Those are the things we could use the funds for. Based on the conversation that we had in December, it was, it seemed clear that the board wasn't quite ready to move forward. And so what would be really helpful to the committee is just some indication of what would be more helpful in the future. And it could have just been a matter of timing on given that the properties are going to be reassessed soon. If that's not the case, if the board would like to hear on a potential future TIF requests or proposals, that the sort of uses of the fund needs to be clearer, that the financial assumptions need to be clearer. That would be really helpful for us if we consider this TIF or a similar solution in the future. And I know you're all spent, so I'm sorry. This is like a heady conversation.
I think my initial response is just that I think you guys did a great job presenting. I think the timing was a little tough because it was sort of couched in the bigger conversation of like, what does economic development mean? What does the committee mean? What is Anna's role? And so I feel like we had really good conversation and landed generally in a good place. I'm not sure Jeff is on board with everything, but like, I think as a board, like I would say we generally agree on the direction. So I feel like for me, the TIF district conversation was just like, I think if that had come forward 6 months or 12 months from now, I might have had like a different feeling about it. It just felt like we were in this messy place of trying to figure things out. That's my personal position on it. So I feel like you did a good job explaining it. So it was more like, it was about me, not about you. Are we breaking up?
I guess I'd agree with Sabrina. I've sort of been distracted on other issues, so I don't have an opinion at this point on whether we should have another TIF district or not.
Okay.
It's all fair.
Echo a lot of the statements. I think one of the concerns I heard from a couple different places was, if we're not seeing a lot of movement on the current TIF district, the value or concern about the value of an additional TIF district. And so I think that's one of the challenges going forward is if I know that the current TIF district is unique in a lot of ways that make it hard for it to make progress. But it's hard because if you look at another TIF district, you have the instant reflection of the current TIF district, which has all kinds of challenges ahead of it. But that's just one thing. I don't know how to address that because I like another TIF district is not the same thing as that one. Especially because of the number of individual properties in the current one and versus other ones, like they're not the same.
Do you mostly, when you're saying the TIF district, do you mostly refer to Hart's Corner? Okay, because they're
only referring to Hart's Corner.
Okay. There are
like
two.
it's just yeah, I think that like you instantly see the reflection of Hart's Corner, and then like separating out how another TIF district might be different than that TIF district, that specific one would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
So you're looking for some demonstrated success before.
Or a reason why there would be more success, right? Like not necessarily demonstrate. I think there's a lot of reasons why you can look at Hart's Corner and say there's a lot of reasons why it's not as successful as we want it to be, but then moving to other ones, why exactly?
Why it's different.
Why it's different, right?
I think some success at exit 6 will also help future districts.
Agreed. Is that a good segue?
I think that's a good segue. So we actually do have a proposed use of some of the TIF funds at the exit 6 TIF that Anna is going to explain.
So we can come back to those comments are helpful for the proposal of the new TIF, and I think you will see that proposal again because of the uniqueness of that area, and we can be more clear in why we believe that area is a unique site which would benefit from the TIF being there. And in some ways, one of the ways that you judge whether a TIF should or should not be in place is the idea but for the TIF, redevelopment wouldn't happen. And this property, we can begin to show that but for the TIF, that area may not be redeveloped in the future. So we can work on helping to make that case when we come back and propose that again. But on the idea of kind of demonstrating success in another TIF district, which is part of it. So we are moving forward. We would like to move forward with groundwater exploration on the west side of 89. So looking for a new water source. So getting water and sewer to the TIF at exit 6 can happen in many ways. We've talked about that here before, I think. And one of those ways which the Economic Development Committee feels is the most promising right now is looking for a new groundwater source to the west of 89 to service the area between two TIFs. So in the exit 6 TIF, the Hart's Corner TIF, and potentially even servicing the area, it's a 3-mile stretch along Route 127 Maple Street. So we have a proposal from a group called Emery and Garrett, a division of GZA. So we refer to it as the GZA proposal to begin that process of groundwater exploration. And so our proposal is that this is funded out of the exit 6 TIF. And the current, did you receive it in your packet? No.
I sent it today.
You said, well, okay.
I did.
They had it They sent it on Friday and
I think.
we
I've
had a
seen it.
previous,
So no,
draft.
it's not.
Okay, so there, we can make sure you get it, but it's got many phases, many tasks within them. The first two phases can happen immediately, and then the subsequent phases, the cost for those would be dependent on what's found in the first two phases. So the first two phases together, the cost is 47,000. The first phase is mapping and surveys at 15.5, and the second phase is identifying specific locations for drilling exploratory test wells, geophysical surveys, electrical resistivity surveys, and that's 31.5. So those two phases can begin as soon as funds are approved and contracts are signed. But we had a long conversation with Sam Courier, our former water sewer superintendent, who was extremely helpful and generous with his time, helping to explain why this is the best course of action at this time. This firm is incredibly reputable, and he feels very confident, very strong about going with this contract.
And how much do you have in reserves for this now, for the TIF?
So the TIF fund has accrued about $500,000.
Do they have an estimate for how much the drilling would be, or how many test wells they'd want to do?
I think they
like
need
phase
to
three.
do phase one and then they would, yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm happy to.
Then do they have a basis for, is there a basis for like they're suspecting there will be groundwater there?
Yeah, I think
Or is it?
so they've been out in the field already with Sam and they've looked at, the aquifer maps that we have. And it's adjacent to the river, which is helpful for finding water. Apparently, that's how that works.
And your thought is that hopefully this could end up providing water to both TIF districts?
Yeah. Mhm.
It's 3 miles roughly. How much
Mhm.
would it cost to put in a 3-mile pipe?
That is what we will find out in subsequent phases.
Yeah, this is, I think it was a 3 to 5 years. So a decision today just sort of sets in motion the study portion of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, the implementation would be a long time coming. So were we to decide to go forward, but certainly from the presentation, it was like, this is like a substantive source of water with a, really excellent water pressure and could really help make this part of town available to businesses and attractive to businesses, and could potentially benefit existing residents at that part of town as well.
And would the current industrial customers, have you talked to them if they would be interested?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked with McLean, we've talked with EBSCO. I mean, my conversations with them, they kind of have trouble envisioning a world where this actually happens.
So
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's asking them to say, what if you won the lottery tomorrow? What would you do with it? But they're very site constrained, particularly McLean's very site constrained. If they no longer had to have a well radius and deal with their own septage, they could expand their facility. But right now they're pretty site constrained, so they can't. So that's one example of an existing.
And making access to water available to this part of town is like one of the express purposes of this TIF district.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
You're welcome to keep that if you want, or to share it.
Does anyone have questions on that proposal?
And it's a reasonable amount. Seems like it's a small amount of the total amount. It's in the.
And this you probably should vote on.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, this sounds like it's a necessary step in order to do anything else related to water, so,
Mhm.
okay. Are you good, Ken? or-
Yes.
Okay, okay.
I'll move, we, approve the request for, you said 47,000?
Yes.
I'll second.
And that's for the proposal from GZA and to be funded out of the TIF fund, correct?
Mhm.
Thank you.
That's what he said.
Yes.
I'm seconding as amended.
And Jeff's no longer with us, so we don't have to, he's no longer on the phone with us.
Did Grace go that?
He's no longer on the phone, and so we don't have to do a roll call vote. So thank you for the motion and the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Thank
have
you
your
very much.
answer.
Very exciting.
Thank you, guys,
I'll
and
keep you apprised of
thank you for your
progress.
patience.
Yes.
Okay.
Get the schedule right, not tonight.
No, I don't. It's okay. It was a necessary conversation. Thank you.
Okay, so if everyone's in agreement, we can do public comment. I would say because Webster has sat through here to be with us, if people have comment on something germane to the transfer station and what we were discussing, that would be great. And since we're gonna be at the polls very, very early tomorrow, if people could just try to keep their comments, not gonna set a limit, but just try to
If you don't show up on time.
keep them brief. That would be great. So anyone online, feel free. And if you have comments on something besides the transfer station, we can still, take those comments. It's just that Webster's here with us and wanted to hear. Okay. So no one in the crowd has public comment on the transfer station or? And-
Hand up.
Okay, why don't you go first and if you can talk into the mic so that the video picks you up. Thank you.
My name is Bill Davis, and I've been a resident of Hopkinton for 45 years. So I was before the green bag arrived on the scene. And I will have to say that my family and I have been recycling long before the green bags arrived. So the green bags, while we were using them, as we given up on them recently, 1 bag a week. So that's the amount of trash that we're generating because we recycle everything else. So the issues around the bag are more, were more the problem with obtaining the bags than the concept. So initially they were available at the Cracker Barrel. And so I went to get them there. They were no longer available because Dave Castellano said people came in and helped themselves to the bags. And when confronted, they said, "Oh, I'm already paying for these through my taxes." And then he had the problem of either confronting his customers and irritating a customer or doing away with carrying the bags. So they're no longer available there and have not been for 12 years. So the next thing is a 3 mile each way to the Kentucky Village to pick up the bags there. And the problem that I discovered there was that when they arrived in boxes, people carried them out in boxes because they knew they might not be available next time they came in. Now I was buying 10 at a time, which would take me, a couple of months, 2.5 months. Somebody else might need 4 times that or 5 times that, depending upon their family size. So getting the bags was an issue. And then the bags routinely disintegrate. So if I look at the cost to me, other than the irritation factor, I'm probably paying $1.25 a week for a bag when I'm doing bags, and I'm paying $55 a quarter. So the difference, even if you raise the price of the bag to $4.32, that's about half of what I'm paying for the convenience of somebody else providing the carpool and saving my gasoline and the extra pollution created by any number of cars running to the transfer station instead of pooling our resources and having somebody else do it. So I'm finding it really difficult to find a price point of the bag that makes sense. And I'm also worried about, the word compliance, trying to make people comply. I'm already complying. I don't need any assistance. And I'm not sure that you're going to create a lot more interest by enforcing compliance. And the last thing is, I think it was your study that said that 50% of the households in Hopkinton are two-person households and 25% are one-person households. And so if that's the case, and I'm generating one bag a week, it's the other 25%. So just raising the price of the bags, I'm not sure that's headed the right direction. So I hope you find some.
Can I ask you a really quick question? Do you bring recycling to the transfer station?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Thank you for your comments. I do just want to clarify, I believe Barrel and Basket does carry the.
Yes, they're
bags.
back.
Okay. They're back.
They've been
Okay.
back for about
So-
Things
do
change.
carry it.
Things change.
But appreciate your perspective and your comments. Thank you. Somebody online, it looks like, I'm gonna guess that's Lauren Clement.
Good evening. Yes, it's Lauren Clement. I posed this question on the question thing when you were having the discussion, so I don't know if anyone saw that, but my question was, would it make any help or difference if you raise the price of the green bags a portion and raise the tipping fee a portion, but not the 100% either way? And would that be any fair to the MT Trash and their customers? Would that make it any easier on them? I also had a comment, and I guess since I'm on, I'll make it quick about the TIF district. We were just discussing how this could impact approximately $80,000 if we didn't make a change. I'm wondering how much dollar value adding that new TIF district will cost per year at the current rates. And then the second part of that, you just voted to add a potential research on a water line going all the way up to McLean's. And my understanding was the Harts TIF district is only in that area. How can we look at expanding a water line all the way down to McLean's when that's not part of that TIF district? Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Isn't that, they were talking about the other TIF district, exit 6.
So this
Yeah.
will be in the exit 6 TIF district.
Yeah, so it is a separate TIF, just so you know, Lauren.
And the decision was no new TIF district, so.
Right.
Yeah, and as I understood it, they'd be looking to potentially connect the two TIF districts that exist currently for water. That was the 3 miles, over the long term, but potentially.
Provide water to them, not necessarily connect them. Not expand the TIFs.
Water,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, water.
Amanda Gilman has her hand up.
Hi, all. I just a little confused. Am I allowed to comment on the water proposal, or is this just about the garbage?
Well, I was trying to limit it to transfer station because Webster's still here, but it appears that people were not jumping up to speak except for a couple earlier people.
I want to speak on the water, but I can be quiet and you can finish the garbage if that'd be better.
Thank you, Amanda, because I am trying to be
thank
conscientious
you.
of Webster being here too. So thank you.
Bye-bye.
So we'll take your comment after. Thanks. So transfer station comments? You were first, Ron. Ron was first, I believe, with his hand.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Bob, not Ron.
No problem. Bob Capri, Highland Avenue, Kentucky. First of all, I want to say I apologize to you, Sabrina, for my inappropriate and rude remark.
I appreciate that.
I
Thank you.
really want you to hear.
You're forgiven. You got to work on that, whispering there.
But yeah, and the thing that kind of sparked that reaction on my part was that the understanding when we implemented pay by bag back a long time now was that we wanted to encourage recycling by diverting, recyclables and just your trash in the green bag. And it does have a lower incentive because it's so cheap. And when we established that price, it was basically a political decision. Because we knew at the time that even at, I think what we were, $25 a ton tipping, that true cost of a 33-pound or a 30-pound bag was going to be more like $2.50. But we said, nah, that's going to be a hard sell. So we backed off on that, and we're still stuck with that. So my feeling is that green bags really should be increased in price for two reasons. One, it better reflects the cost of disposing what's in the green bag, but it also will provide maybe a more significant incentive for people to reduce their or increase their recycling. We have a fairly large family. We take out or my sister, my dump person, we take a lot of recyclables out every week. Part of our consumerism, that sort of thing. And we're pretty decent about our green bags. And, you know, if a green bag went up to $4, you know, that's okay, because it better reflects what it's, you know, what it's paying for. And it also, I think conversely, it'll give people a more significant understanding that they can reduce their costs by you know, recycling. And so I think it's going to be an unpopular idea, but I think it makes sense, because we really have to start paying our way. The same way with the tipping fee, you know, it's, you know, like I say, it used to be $25. Now it's almost 100. So, and going up. So I think, you know, it's time for us to, as a town and as a society, to step up and start paying our way, as opposed to, you know, diverting costs and that sort of thing. It's a very bad habit we have. So anyway, I appreciate you guys taking so much time to think about it. And you know, if we could somehow solve the bifurcated aspects of our transfer station, that would be really helpful, because we do have a compliance problem, because it's very easy to get through. So anyway. Thank you.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Sure.
So right now you take green bags to the transfer station?
Yes.
If the bags were $4, but they'd be picked up on the side of the road, would you still take them to the transfer station, or would you have them picked up?
Well, I wouldn't pay to have them picked up.
Right, but the bags, it doesn't matter. The bag's $4. You have to buy the bag no matter what.
I would
So
still
you
go
can-
to the,
you
we
still
would
go-
still
okay.
take it. Yeah. I don't want to pay an extra fee, and as much as it's.
No extra fee.
Yeah.
Just
Well, if you're paying somebody else to pick it up, it's.
No, you're not paying.
This
that's
is,
what I'm
this
saying.
is part of Thomas's
That's-
hypothetical.
No, that's what I'm saying though. No extra fee, no anything. Just the bag is $4, and you can take it if you want, or you leave it out and it gets picked up for free.
Yeah, I
Would you?
suppose.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious.
It's save gas.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we did calculate the cost of going to the transfer station.
But then you have to bring your recycling.
Well, everyone has to.
That's
that's the
right.
whole
I know.
recycling thing.
Yeah.
And we're very into recycling.
Thank you, Bob.
He has
Appreciate it.
pickup, Pat takes it.
That's right. You have your own personal pickup.
He has pickup.
Yeah, she does it all. I love it.
Thanks, Bob. I think Scott was next.
Hello, Scott Clay, Boundtree Road. Just a couple of comments. If green bags aren't the solution to providing incentive for recycling, I guess I'd be interested in what the ideas are, because I mean, we recycle, and the gentleman that spoke before recycles, but there are people that are not as motivated. So there's that. And the other thing on electronics, I'd just like to point out that there are a number of businesses that will not only take your electronics, they'll pay you for them. Like Staples, they take almost everything at Staples. Best Buy, they take a lot of stuff at Best Buy too. So as you're considering what you might charge people to get rid of their cell phone, I mean, you can get rid of all that stuff for free, and it's not that far away. So
That's good to know. All right,
those
thank
are my
you.
comments.
Thank you. Catherine?
Catherine Mitchell, also Boundtree Road. I would just want to point out, well, a couple of things. I have one question, and I want to point out in terms of the green bags and whether or not they have been incentivizing recycling enough. I think when the program first started, we did see a gradual uptick in recycling, but we haven't had enforcement, and therefore we haven't had compliance. And before we talk about the possibility of ending the program, I'd like to go through the process of having people have stickers and trying to enforce it and do the compliance part first and then see where we're at. And I have a question, Thomas, when you talked about the green bag price, including all of the transfer station costs, not just the tipping fees, was that the portion based only on residential trash, or is that for all of the costs? I think you said it, but I missed it.
Take away construction and demo, and
Okay.
take away yard waste. And the remainder cost is really only municipal solid waste and recycling fees. Well, not recycling fees, but the cost of getting rid of recycling. So that cost, so it incorporates everything that would be to do with the household, basically.
So you took the percentage out of everything, salaries, overhead, energy.
Yeah.
So you're looking only at residential trash.
So if you split, so there's the cost of actually transferring out the waste.
Right.
Then there's all the costs to do with recycling. And then there's the total cost for all of staff and equipment and maintenance. And then you split that staff, maintenance, and equipment. You split it between the amount of waste or the amount of weight or the amount of cost that's going either to construction or demo. So then you take only the component that's staff and maintenance and cost that's associated with residential.
Okay. When the program was first instituted, it was designed to cover only tipping fees and the transportation costs to transport the trash, the residential trash. And I'm not suggesting it shouldn't cover other things, but that was the original philosophy, was just, this is specifically what the costs are for this trash. We'd have a transfer station with these other costs anyway. I'm not sure you don't have a better approach, but that was what it was at the beginning. Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine. Bonnie, do you want to come on up?
The first thing I wanted to say is thank you all for, this is a deep dive. It's way overdue, but I appreciate all the work that's going into it. And I also wanted to specifically thank Webster for being here and being part of it now. And I emailed a bit with Dave and sent him some reports, and he put together some graphs and charts, which were very helpful. And it's wonderful to have a select board person who will do that. It's very helpful. So thank you. I wonder if we could ask if the presentations like yours, Thomas, if that could be available ahead of time. So it was just really hard to follow without being able to see it ahead of time. So that would be very helpful. I also think regarding the fees discussion and everything in general, it would be so helpful if I think both Dan and Jolene were here, because I mean, they know so much, and there are little things that come up in the discussion that they might be able to put to rest really quickly. And they're the ones who are going to be implementing it. So either work with them beforehand or do that and invite them to come to these sessions, because I think that would be really helpful to it. In the revised agreement, at this point, we have no public group, no community group or committee that's involved in the transfer station. And we do have the waste reduction committee, but originally we had the refuse disposal committee, and that had a much broader mission than what we have. And I wondered if it's not included now in the current agreement, but does that preclude such a committee in being put together at some point in the future For example, I was wondering if we should have an integrated waste management committee. There's a good model in Dover. And it's the schools, it's the DPW, it's everybody who's involved in waste on a bunch of different levels. And it's just an advisory group that might meet quarterly to put all these things together. But is that precluded?
I don't think so. I think when we discussed it, it was mostly because the refuse disposal committee was sort of defunct. And so it was like, why
Yes.
have it? But I don't think
Okay.
any of us were closed off to, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but
Our understanding was that because it hasn't been functioning the way that it was written, and unless there was the ability to actually do control in that committee, that there really wasn't the kind of purpose for it, that it made sense to just not include it. So the ordinance is no longer going to say that there is a committee that is going to run the transfer station. It does not mean that there can't be a committee created by somebody that wants to advise or put information towards whether it's budgeting or petition warrant articles, et cetera.
Good, thanks. We will just rewrite our mission statement or just tweak our mission statement because in the waste reduction committee right now, we're supposed to work with the refuse disposal committee and that doesn't exist anymore. So in terms of generally on policy, I would urge you to implement policies that serve the most people in the best way. And I know we've talked about the impact of certain policy changes on small subsets of our community, but to me, the most important thing is, I think you addressed this, Sabrina, fairness is what we're after, and fairness for as many people as possible. I do think, Stephen, I know you said that you felt that there wasn't a specific correlation between the green bags and recycling. I think there is. Ken, I sent you some information. I sent it to you as well, Dave. And what I saw is I tracked the income from green bags since the program was implemented. And what I see is a correlation between the first few years when green bags were being used and the recycling rate. And as soon as the green bag income went down, meaning fewer people were buying them, so did the recycling rate. And last year we were at our lowest level yet of people buying green bags, at least as reported on the income. And that was also our lowest level, until this year, of recycling. We're down to 11% now. So to me, that's a correlation. If those numbers mean something different, and I know correlation doesn't mean causation. However, I can send you those numbers.
I just want to comment on that. I agree with you that conceptually that's certainly correct. You made the same comment at a budget committee meeting, and Rob Nato said that he had his class try to develop a correlation and they couldn't.
I heard that, and I would
know.
sit down with Rob and say there are a lot of factors that you weren't considering with your class.
And
at
I'm
the
just
time,
saying
so.
there's two sides to the.
And his was hypothetical and ours is numbers on the ground from experience, but I heard that too, yes. In terms of the ordinance itself, I think it would be really helpful if we can have an expansion of the definitions section of that, because there were a lot of things that we talked about tonight. Like, we don't really know, what do we mean when we say commercial? Like, we have a commercial hauler who's bringing trash in, but all that trash is residential. So that was just, I mean, that's a work session to sit down and flesh out the definitions. In terms of the stickers, it's not at the discretion of the clerk to set the price. That's the highest price that can be set is $1. It's not discretionary. The clerk may or may not sell them, but the ordinance only enables the clerk to charge $1.
is that in the ordinance?
Yes, it is.
To adjust that on the fee schedule if that
Yeah,
is.
it should be part of the fee
We'll have to-
schedule instead of in the ordinance.
Right, yeah, that's odd.
Yeah, on the fees, do we need to have a public hearing on the fees?
Yes.
And why is that?
Anytime that a board is changing any fee schedule, they must hold a public hearing on those changes and be able to adapt to anything that is brought up.
Okay.
So My understanding is that this is the start of where we want to go. And when we have that nailed down with consensus, as it sounds like we do now, then we can move forward towards having that public hearing. One would happen here in Hopkinton with the Hopkinton board, one would happen in Webster with the Webster board. And once, assuming they both get approved as is by the boards after that hearing, then it would be able to go into effect. If one board wanted to change something based on public comment, then we would start that process over again with more public hearings in both towns.
Okay. You might want to put that into the ordinance as well, because right now the way it reads is just that the boards will change the fee schedule as
Well,
needed.
that's just the way that fee schedule.
Yeah, just so there's an understanding that there's a public comment.
Just a comment on the stickers, it actually says that they're on the fee schedule, so that is correct.
They're on the fee schedule.
Yeah, town
Section
clerks
2.
may charge a fee as approved on the fee.
You have the
schedule.
updated ordinance? Proposal?
Um,
No, you don't.
no,
That's the
Yes.
current ordinance. That's not the updated.
Oh, so we fixed it.
okay, I do
Okay.
have that with me tonight, but good.
Okay, good.
So, okay, good.
Check that.
I would ask that we publish the annual recycling report from Jolene as well as the facilities, the annual facilities report to DES in the town report so that people can see what's going on. I would invite people from Webster to join the Waste Reduction Committee. And also the way we have it set up, we have in Hopkinton, there's a select board member that is sort of a liaison with each of the town committees, and Jeff is now our liaison from Hopkinton, but I would invite if a select board member from Webster wants to also be a liaison from Webster, we would certainly welcome that.
And I
And-
will say that we have made a note to announce that a couple times, as well as told, for example, our conservation committee that if they know somebody that please recommend them and get them in touch. We
Yeah.
have not yet heard anything about that.
Beat the bushes. Okay. And my last thing is I'm encouraging at every meeting and whenever there's policy and changes being made that we start to include discussions about the climate impact of our policies and our decisions. And I think for an example, if we had, instead of having people, everybody drive individually to the transfer station to bring their recyclables, if we had one truck going around and picking up the trash and the recyclables, one stop, it wouldn't be so many vehicles. And I would guess that that would lower our emissions, our carbon footprint of the town. So I would just encourage the select board to always keep climate change in the back of your mind when there's a policy discussion. So that's it. Thank you very much. Dave, I have
Bye.
all the reports going back to 2008. And Dana said, if Scott comes in there, he would make copies.
Okay.
For all you guys.
Sure, I'll give them to Dana.
Thank you very much.
Anything else on transfer station?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Hatley, Highland Road, Highland Ave, Katukook. I'm a little tired, sorry. My question is, how are these tipping fees gonna be collected? Are they gonna be collected on site at the transfer station? So there will be
No.
cash
Wait, no,
and,
sorry, that was my bad. I thought they were.
I'm sorry?
Let
Thought-
Neil
I thought they
answer.
were-
Don't listen to Thomas. Let Neil answer.
They're tracked and billed monthly.
Okay.
They're tracked and billed monthly.
Okay, okay. I'm just curious because, you know, when I'm reading the tipping, the tipping fee schedule that you have up there, it sounds like, you know, I have a washing machine I gotta get rid of and I need to pay $5 for that.
Those are collected at the transfer station.
That's my question. That's what I wanted to know, at the residential level, a single or color,
Mhm.
you know. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think anyone else for transfer station, or if you guys want to stick around and hear.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
For being part of this.
Thank you.
Appreciate your thoughtful comments and discourse.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Good luck tomorrow.
I'm very happy that we got to a place that allows us to move forward.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks for helping us get there.
Hey, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
This is really gratifying to see you pick them up.
Appreciate that.
Don't forget to vote tomorrow.
It's true. Polls are open 7 to 7. High school.
We already talked about our schedule.
Amanda wanted to speak, but our schedule, you were not here.
Yeah, I was here for that part.
Yeah, so Sarah said if we could get there by 6:45, that would be great. If you can't, that's okay, I think, but yeah, the polls will be open 7 to 7. Amanda, if you still would like to speak, or anyone else for sort of general public comment, now would be your chance. Thank you to everyone who came tonight and participated. We appreciate it.
Hello, all. I'll be brief. I just want to speak quickly on the exit 6 water proposal. And I think that like as a whole, the townspeople don't quite understand, or people listening perhaps don't understand the importance of this. This to me is the first really business forward, very proactive approach to attracting businesses to this town that I have ever seen. It's using TIF funds to fund this. And then the TIF funds will also be used to create hopefully a future water source for both the Exit 6 area, as well as potentially further down the line, maybe to include other areas towards West Hopkinton. And it will be of no cost to the taxpayers. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's a potential to actually, bring revenue to town, bring industry to our most marketable area, which is the Exit 6 area right off of 89. And it's of no cost. So I just want to put in a solid plug for this proposal because I think it's brilliant. And I thank you to Anna and Ian and everybody who put this together.
Thanks, Amanda. And we did vote to support it, just so you know.
I do, but I did hear some chatter from some other people that didn't quite understand the importance of it. And so I really wanted to put in a solid plug to the town that this is important. Thanks for listening.
Appreciate that. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Amanda.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay, so we'll close public comment. And does anyone have new business?
Did we do?
We haven't done the warrant.
Yeah.
Nope. Where are
2024
we?
town
Under,
meeting.
sorry, old business. But do we have any new business? I think the answer is no. So I'm going to check that off. We'll go back to old business and do the warrant. Town meeting.
So you received a copy of the updated warrant. The main change is adding the SB2 petition, which was added as Article 3. And everything else I think is up to date and ready to go. There are, including the other legal business, 13 warrant articles. 1 and 2 are done on Tuesday, and then the rest are done on Thursday night.
Thursday night.
I should just note that on Article 9, adoption of the Hopkinton Community Power Plan, the committee had proposed a change to it, and the new language is here. And what it does is gives the committee has the authority to make a filing at the Public Utilities Commission, and then afterwards the select board would, following town meeting approval, would adopt it, and it just saves probably a couple of months in the process, with the hope that we could roll out the offering sooner as opposed to later.
The original warrant said that the plan would be submitted by the select board after the approval of this. So that was the change.
And I didn't know, Neil, if it would make sense to say that the Community Power Committee recommends this Article 7-0, or if we don't do that.
You don't put that on a warrant.
Okay, fair enough.
It's pretty prescribed.
Okay.
That's called electioneering.
The committee was talking about that.
But nice try.
Good.
Okay.
And the proposed public hearings, well, the budget hearing is set for February 7th. And then, if it's okay with you, the SB2 hearing would be on Monday, February 26th, which at 6, which is one of your meeting nights. It
Mhm.
needs to be between 15 and 30 days prior to the day it is voted on, not the beginning of town meeting, but the day it's voted. So that falls right into that
Okay.
bracket.
Okay. In SB2, does that have to be open for like, is that, I know it's very prescribed.
It's an
how
hour.
done. It's an hour,
Yeah.
okay.
Ballot vote for an
Oh.
hour.
It doesn't say that on here. I need to add that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it doesn't say that on there. I don't think it has to.
Okay.
I'll check. This time of night, anything's possible.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
But it is open an hour. So that's why it's first,
Mhm.
because the meeting probably will be over by the time the hour's up.
I hope so.
But if there's any, really, your next meeting, believe it or not, is the
When we vote.
signature meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seriously?
So
Good Lord, this
To go
is,
to-
things are moving fast.
to go to finalize it, because it has to be posted after that. That will be after the budget hearing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Let me just ask then, does anybody on the committee have any questions or concerns about the community power warrant article? You know, should I,
Explain to me again. I just want to make sure I understand it. What exactly is it doing?
the plan is being developed and it'll be submitted in February to the Public Utilities Commission.
Mm-hmm.
That will come to the select board first, right?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Before it gets submitted.
no. The committee has the authority to do that.
Are you sure?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
It would mean that once it, goes to town meeting, if it's approved at town meeting, then it still goes to the select board to decide, do we like it and do we want to proceed?
Okay. So what's the tweak in this though?
To allow the committee, to have the committee file the plan at the PUC
No,
prior
it
to town meeting.
took out that the select board would do that after the vote. The
After
original
town
warrant
meeting.
article said that, so that's the change.
Yeah.
As long as we're sure that's allowed.
Yeah,
We
that was.
confirm this will go to council.
Mhm.
Okay. But so if the town rejects this, I'm just saying theoretically, then it's no.
Nothing happens.
So you're just saying it streamlines things by doing it, because otherwise, if not for this change, the town would vote on it and then the committee would submit to the
Mm.
PUC or whatever it is.
Yes, and that would take another 60 days or so.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there a cost related to submitting besides your energy and effort?
No, the plan is pretty much put together and it's pretty much off the shelf,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, 50 towns have already done it or so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. So at the next meeting, we'll vote on all of these? Or-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll edit it however. We
Does
have to
anyone-
sign it that night.
Does anyone know if they have a conflict? It would be nice if we were all here to vote. I'll have to check with Jeff.
On the 12th?
Yeah,
If Jeff could at least vote and then he could
Yeah.
come in and sign,
okay.
it's always good to have,
Wait, is it
especially
12th?
for the town. review.
Yeah,
Wait, why did it on the 12th?
is this the second Monday of each
Oh,
month?
March elections. Sorry.
We're talking about our next meeting.
Sorry. Wait,
Can you be here February 12th?
for the elections.
No, for,
For our
There's
meeting,
no election on
February
February
12th.
you're in the wrong one.
Yeah, I'm in the wrong month there.
It's a late night already, I
That's-
know.
Yeah, we have a select board. meeting.
Yes.
That's what we're checking.
Yeah,
Yes, we do. That's right.
yeah. I'll be here.
So glad it's in your calendar already. Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right, so it sounds like we'll all be here.
I can't be here. I'll be at the select board.
There you go.
Can't be here. I'm at the election.
Still counting.
Oh, God. Okay. Are we done with old business now?
I think it's dead.
Thank you for that. Anyone, I think we're good with new business. Neil, do you have any other town administrator
Sure, my
updates?
first note says keeping, and I have no idea what that is, so that's good. That's quick. We did have a Labor Department audit. The inspector was here last Wednesday and Thursday. We walked through each building. Things in general were nothing that you wouldn't expect to find. We'll get the report next week, so you'll get the report. And we've already started doing all of his recommendations. He actually was very good.
Nice.
I'm also excited that David L. White has started as our wastewater superintendent. He is in, the poor guy, the second day of his second week, we walk in with the labor inspector, but he was like, I haven't, it's okay. So he is settled in well. I think he's going to be great. So which is really good. Also, Margaret Dillon, who is an energy auditor, was here last Friday, back again today. She'll be here this Friday. She was in this building so far. She'll be doing the police and fire stations. I think those are the two scheduled for next week. This is through New Hampshire Saves. And we'll get recommendations and hopefully get some of that paid. There's a poster up. I'm going to do cookies with Cass again at the
nice.
library, which is always a good event. I learned this week in talking to Sharon Summers, our town council, that she is retiring. So
Aw.
she will be at town meeting, but
Does she know it's Thursday and not Saturday?
she does. She was like, what? Yes. She
Is she
does.
happy about it?
It is on her. Is she happy she's retiring?
No, is she happy it's on Thursday versus a Saturday?
She's retiring. I don't think she cares.
I appreciate your
So-
effort to pull everyone.
Yeah.
out.
So their plan is they're going to team attorneys with town. So that's so we'd actually have two probably.
nice.
A more seasoned attorney with a less seasoned attorney.
Mhm.
And I think that's it. It has been a crazy month here. I don't know why or how, but we've moved offices, we've moved all sorts. There's been a lot going on, and
The
it smells
election
like
makes
paint
it-
and there's construction going on, and but it's all good.
All right, thank you.
And I appreciate my new office. So
Nice.
Good.
Ken, do you have?
Hey, there was a mention at the budget committee about impact fees. And could you explain what we do or don't do with impact fees at this point?
we don't do anything with impact fees.
And I flagged for Neil that I brought this up several times during budget discussions. So I just want to note that I had raised it, and I feel like Jeff said repeatedly, we like couldn't do it or didn't make sense because it has to be tied to it's like a specific purpose.
You need an ordinance. You need an impact fee ordinance to do impact fees.
That's it?
Well, it's not as, we've looked at it numerous times and it has never been, it's always been determined not to be worth doing,
that must
but
be what Jeff
we
was
can
saying.
pull together all the information.
Okay. I just said I would raise the question. In our packet, you had provided executive council minutes from Cindy Warmington. And item number 52 on that was Henniker was getting $2,500 for used oil collections. Would we be getting in effect a share of that? Because of the hazardous waste that we do with Henniker?
No. That wouldn't be waste oil. They probably have a waste oil furnace. They might have gotten a grant. We have a waste oil furnace where we burn our waste oil too. It heats the where the compactors are at the transfer station, the balers.
It says for the purpose of used oil collections, and it's coming from the hazardous waste cleanup funds,
And how much is it?
2,500.
Yeah, they probably replaced their waste oil furnace. We did that a few years ago.
That's all.
All right.
I never expected a question on Cindy Warmington's report, I have to say.
Sorry.
Good job, Ken. Good digging. Okay. Anything for other? No new business. Covered that several times. Okay, that leaves us with one non-public session under 91A3 2B. And so after our non-public, we will adjourn and not conduct any other business. And I will move that we go into non-public under RSA 91A3 2B.
Second.
Okay, it's a roll call vote. Thomas?
Yes.
I mean, yes, Ken and Stephen.
Yes.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Kara. Yes, we
Pretty soon.
know.